Still. Yeah, cool man. I feel man's live still. Peace to everybody, all of the people them that's locked in on the early one. You get me? You see the title of the show, KIMOYO, Why I Choose African Spirituality. ShakaRa is gonna do his live presentation in a couple minutes. First, I just wanted to take this opportunity, because I ain't spoken publicly about the passing of my brother Issa. You get me? Peace to my brother Issa still, sir. Man, definitely want to send out man's condolences to the family. I miss that brother enough already. You get me? Like when he used to come down to the park, like when I used to see man in the park, when I used to anticipate man, fam, it would bring a joy to man's face. You get me? Because I know how most of the people them that's in the park, he's on a sensible thing. You get me? Like he's on, like, he's coming to do works and cut, fam. You know, no foolishness. A man's gonna have a constructive dialogue if the next person's willing to have a respectable, constructive dialogue. You get me? The brother who's gonna be hosting the presentation as well, ShakaRa. I used to enjoy them, like him and Issa and Uncle Dan Juma. I used to enjoy them discussions the most. You get me? Because they got their differences in terms of their perspective on life and their religion and spirituality and them thing there still. But as I said, from what I understood anyway, they all consider each other brothers the same way. And when they're disagreeing, it's with the most respect at the same time. You get me? So peace to my brother Issa. Yes, trust me, fam. John know that it's a mad thing, fam. Cause anytime I was in the corner, fam, one big smile will come on my face when I see him and come in the place. You get me? Like, to know that man ain't never gonna see man roll through again. When man, especially when man goes back there, fam, to the park. You get me? It's gonna be a mad thing still. It's gonna be a mad thing still. It's definitely gonna be on my mind, fam. Cause it used to be one of the greatest things that happened in Speaker's Corner when man roll through still. But yeah, peace to my brother Issa, man. All the families coping with it as well as they can. You get me? Yeah, man. Sure. Trust me, fam. We all got man questioning what happens in life, in afterlife, and all of these things. If there's such a thing, you get me? Like, man, I'm going forever, man. Still, but right now we're gonna go into the reason why we air in the first place, the scheduled show. We're gonna make my brother ShakaRa take over the thing still, sir. Yeah, anytime you're ready, ShakaRa.
Right, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Firstly, I just want to just reiterate everything that you just said. You get me? Obviously, man had a lot of good vibes with brother Issa. Yeah, and his passing, like, it was all very sudden, innit? Like, man just woke up one morning and he say, "Yo, Issa gone," you know what I mean? And yeah, I want to send condolences to his family again. I understand that he was buried yesterday. His funeral was yesterday, which, you know, I would have loved to have been there had I really known about it. You know what I'm saying? So, but I hear there was a stream, so I'm gonna check out the stream still, you know, and see how that went. But big up to everyone still. I'm gonna share my screen here. Yeah, so 1 second, let me just prepare this thing properly. All right. Oh, what am I supposed to be doing? Right, share the entire screen. Share the entire screen. Right, let me know if you can see it.
Yeah, we're sharing still.
All right, cool. So, well, leave it as it is for now, but you might be able to just get rid of me. Are you gonna be there the whole time?
Yeah, I should be still. Should be. I might have to cut out in about 20 minutes, but if I do, I'll let you know.
All right, no problem. Yes, I might say to you to just get rid of man, innit? So that they can see the slides, but leave it like this for now, innit? See what I go on. Big up to everyone in the chat. Hey, as you come through, yeah, make sure you hit the like button. You know what I'm saying? You hit the like button and make sure that you know what I mean, the video can spread and grow throughout the land of YouTube and all these things. And also, what's it called? Share up the link in it. If you are not subscribed to Content Over Everything, subscribe to the thing right about now. You don't know, yeah. And yeah, family, do keep the thing like in checking it. So like, if you're not hearing me good, or there's muffles or distortion or anything like that, let man know, because man's gonna try and pay attention to the chat. And these things, yeah. But big up to everyone in the chat sending their love to brother Isa. Big up brother Iramon Shelley in the house, Western Goddess, and all these things. Okay, so just to give you a bit of background, yeah, the presentation is called KIMOYO, Why I Choose African Spirituality. Don't worry if you don't understand all the words in that, because we're going to explain everything loud and clear, principally. What you can see in this image that is behind everything, behind the wording, is a picture of my manhood initiation ceremony. Yeah, so this is a manhood initiation ceremony. In 2004, I was initiated formally into manhood after going through a rites of passage program. And so this is all a part of the African spiritual process, and I considered it to be appropriate to use this image as the backdrop for the title screen. What you can see there is a group of men gathered around myself, and we are, you know, draped in our robes, and behind us you can see the flag of the red, black and green, which is the flag that was given to us by Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, as the head of the UNIA ACL, and was the flag that was should I say inaugurated 100 years ago in the month of August, the month we call Mosiah, as an act of nationhood. Yeah, Africans around the world gathered in Madison Square Gardens for 31 days, the 31 days of the month of Mosiah. And one of the things that they did was develop a flag to represent African people around the world, and that was the red, black, and green flag. And so I'm going to get into how that fits into African spirituality a little bit later on. But this presentation was been a long time coming. I've been meditating on how to construct it for a while. The sister Samaya came on one of my lives one time. I believe it was one of my lives anyway, and said to me that I should do a presentation on why I personally am convicted by African spirituality. And so that planted a seed, and since then it's taken on new significance. Before I get started, however, I do want to give a dedication to my auntie Nkechi. My auntie Nkechi passed away recently, so this particular presentation is actually dedicated to her and her memory. She was very passionate about things like this, African spirituality, and gave me a lot of support in terms of developing presentations like these, and, you know, becoming more scientific in our understanding and appreciation of African spirituality. And so the presentation today is dedicated to my auntie Nkechi, who passed away in the month of March and was laid to rest just Thursday, gone, kings and queens. But this is a very great African woman, and I just want to start by dedicating it to her. The next thing is not necessarily a dedication, but a shout out to my brother Isa Fringpong, because obviously we had a lot of conversations around subjects like these, and if he was with us in the physical, I have no doubt that he'd be tuned in right about now, listening, locked on, and maybe have one or two questions for man. And so I just want to send a special shout out to brother Isa, just to say give thanks, you know what I'm saying, for the reasonings that we had and the spirit that we shared, you know, the vibes that we shared with each other, you know. So we give thanks for that. All right, so I got a lot to get through. Yeah, I'm gonna speak for about an hour and a half, and then we're gonna open up for some Q&A, for some question and answer. The presentation is actually a lot longer than that, but I'm gonna cut it down and get through it very, very quickly. So stay tuned. Yeah, take your notes and all them something there. And yeah, you know, you don't know, we're gonna get through the thing, you know what I'm saying, nice and easy. I was debating whether to begin with this or bring it at the end. I was wondering whether to go through the line of logic and then introduce what I have been raised in. Yeah, but you saw my the picture from my initiation ceremony. I am a born and raised member of the Al-Kebulan revivalist movement. Yeah, just to give a brief explanation of the Al-Kebulan revivalist movement, it was founded in 1987. No, you are not seeing double. This is my father, kings and queens. He goes by the name of brother Leader Bandaka, who is a founding father, one of the founding fathers and the only remaining founding father of the Al-Kebulan revivalist movement. He is also its spiritual leader. Okay, so the Al-Qaeda revivalist movement, it begins in 1987. I am born in 1985. So basically, I'm a born and raised member of the Al-Qaeda revivalist movement. And just as a brief explanation, the Al-Qaeda revivalist movement is a liberation movement based upon an African-centered spiritual cultural philosophy called what we call Al-Qaeda liberty, and the nationalist Pan-Africanist philosophy of the most eminent prophet and king, His Excellency Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and the eminent prophet and king Omowale Malcolm X. Yeah. If you don't understand all of that fully, feel free to ask questions later on, but we're going to go forward because we've got enough to get through, and a lot of what I've just explained will be explained a little bit later on anyway. Yeah. So as far as our Kebalan liberty is concerned, yeah, there are three core concepts within our Kebalan liberty, okay, which is living, yeah, which basically what's it called, alludes to the idea that our Kebalan liberty is a life sustaining and life enhancing philosophy encompassing the 360 degrees of the African life cycle from the womb to the tomb and beyond. And you get divinity. Al-Qaeda liberty is a Mwari, or quote unquote God-centered faith and philosophy. I'm going to move on, but just except to say that the term liberty is a composite word, a neologism, yeah, built around the terms living and divinity. And finally, for three core concepts, our Kebalan liberty is about mother culture, meaning that the culture of our of Africa, our motherland, as manifested in the teachings and traditions of Mudzimu Mokuro, which is Shona. The Shona language is spoken mostly in Zimbabwe, and it means great ancestors. And so as a mother gives birth to her offspring, so has Mama Africa given birth to all African people. As the nature and personality of a mother is coded in the genes and the psyche of her children, so is the nature and culture of Mama Africa coded in the genes and psyche of all Africans. Thus, our bond with Mama Africa is natural, inseparable, and eternal. So we're really referring to the culture that we developed due to our relationship with a landmass that is today called Africa. Okay. Finally, for the basically summing up some core concepts within our Kebalan liberty, yeah, so you understand my foundation before we get into the justification, the line of reasoning for this foundation, the governing principles of our Kebalan liberty. Our Kebalan, I'm not going to read all of this, so let's bear with me, but you can read it as on the screen. And by the way, let me know if the screen, yeah, is sufficient for the eyes them to see what is coming up on it. Yeah, so just let me know if everything is, you know, legible and readable and all these things. Okay, but our Kebalan liberty is a nature-based philosophy and faith. Our Kebalan liberty is based purely upon natural laws, or our knowledge of natural laws. Nature being the manifest words, laws, will, and command of Mwari. Mwari, again, is the Shona word for the creator. Now, I should have begun by saying Tendai Mwari, which means give thanks unto the Most High, our Father, creator of the universe. Kudzai Muzimu Makulu, give praises unto our great ancestors. Forgive me for not beginning with that opening greeting to you all. It is therefore not based upon mythology, i.e. mythology propounded as fact, although it values mythology as metaphors of reality. Al-Kebalan liberty is African-centered, which speaks for itself. And finally, Al-Kebalan liberty is a cultural synthesis, which means that Al-Kebalan liberty is a synthesis of all the authentic teachings and traditions of Mama Africa. It recognizes the single essence, which underlies the variations in cultural practices. Yeah, I'm going to explain that a little bit later on, so I'm not going to read it all, but I'm going to stop to say reason number one why I am convicted by the African spiritual path is because African spirituality is fundamentally nature-based. Yeah, and so it being nature-based, through my understanding, gives it a certain kind of power and power potential, and reasoning that ties it to reality, the nature of things, kings and queens. I hope you're following me so far. So now we're going to define African spirituality. We're going to get into defining African spirituality. All right, bear this in mind. Okay, coming from the teachings of the Al-Qaeda revivalist movement, spirituality is a way of life steeped in reverence to a divine creation and divine inner cultivation. Yeah, the two things to highlight there. We're understanding ourselves as a part of or within a divine creation, and we are in reverence to that divine creation, and also as a part of that divine creation, that we have a inner manifestation, yes, an intuitive, fundamental manifestation of that divine creation within us. We are expressions of it, yeah. So we seek to cultivate ourselves as a part of that divine creation. That is how we define spirituality. Okay, all right, moving forward, I'm going to move very, very quickly because there's enough to get through. Spirituality is the center and foundation of African culture, the core of African consciousness, and thus the essence of the African personality. This is Brother Leader Bandaka's way of just emphasizing the centrality, yeah, of spirituality to African culture. I have never come across an African culture that doesn't have a spiritual philosophy, and I have never come across an African culture in which that spiritual philosophy is not central to the culture in and of itself, that it doesn't define how people walk, talk, eat, bring children into the world, how elders or ancestors are honored when they leave this plane of existence, and so on and so forth. And so we're saying that African spirituality is central and foundational to African culture. To extemporize that point a little bit further, yeah. Let me just first of all define African, yeah, because it's necessary to do this now, because somebody is wondering, somebody out there is wondering, why is it African spirituality and not just spirituality? Well, when we say African, kings and queens, very basically, we are relating to people of African descent. We're emphasizing spirituality as expressed by African people. We are also emphasizing a dedication to African people, or a conscious will and desire to focus on the development of African people. And there is a reason for that. So what you need to take away from this so far is that when we talk about African spirituality, we're talking about spirituality, we're talking about culture, we're talking about history, and we are also talking about politics. Yeah. So in my concept of African spirituality, it is inherently political. And when we emphasize African within African spirituality, we are emphasizing the politicization of this spiritual expression for reasons which will become clear as we go forward, kings and queens. So what is culture? We have to define what culture is. Yeah. And for our definition, we are going to pray on the wisdom of our great and illustrious Mama Marimba Ani, kings and queens. In the book Yurugu, the subtitle being An African-Centered Critique of European Culture, Cultural Thought and Behavior, she says, Wade Nobles defines culture as a process which gives people a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. A process which gives people a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. Its aspects, he says, are ideology, ethos, and worldview. Its factors are ontology, cosmology, and axiology. Its manifestations consist of behavior, values, and attitudes. There's a whole big word, yeah, in that definition. So we're going to go forward and explain what some of those big words mean, yeah, through the factors of culture. Quite simply, ontology is the branch of metaphysics dealing with the nature of being, a set of concepts and categories in a subject area or domain that shows their properties and the relations between them. In other words, what you need to take from that, kings and queens, is that ontology is about the nature of being, how we see ourselves, how we define ourselves and each other. Yes? Okay? And then from that, groups of concepts arise that inform how a culture develops, the makeup of a culture in terms of how people see themselves as agents of that culture. Then we have cosmology, which is the science of the origin and development of the universe. Modern cosmology is dominated by the Big Bang Theory, which brings together observational astronomy and particle physics. So cosmology is about, if ontology is about how we see our nature of being, cosmology is about how we understand the universe and how we understand ourselves as a part of the universe. And then you have axiology. Axiology is the study of the nature of the value, of value and valuation and the kinds of things that are valuable. One of their central questions in axiology is this: what elements can contribute to the intrinsic value of a state of affairs? So the key word there is value. Yeah. So what a culture values becomes sacred within the culture. What a culture values develops into principles that govern the cultural order. Okay, so ontology informs cosmology, and in fact cosmology also informs ontology, and the two of them give birth to values and principles that inform how a culture is formalized and how a culture develops. These are the factors of culture, and I hope we can see where we're going so far, because in essence what religions do, what spirituality does, is that it brings all of these things together within a unified body that we can refer to as a philosophy, kings and queens. Yeah. To go forward, I'm not going to read all of this, but we're defining culture a little bit more. Yeah. Culture acts to unify and order experience so that its members perceive organization, consistency, and system. In this respect, it provides a worldview that offers up orienting conceptions of reality. Culture gives people group identification as it builds on shared historical experience, creating a sense of collective cultural identity. 3, culture tells its members what to do, thereby creating a voice of prescriptive authority to its members. Culture represents values which they themselves can have created together out of shared experiences as a systematic set of ideas and a single coherent statement. We're not going to read all of this next one, kings and queens. I'm just going to go to the very bottom one. Well, actually, let me highlight point 4 just to say that it provides the basis for commitment. I'm not going to go into that any further. Just note that it provides a basis for commitment. And finally, number 6, for all of the above reasons, it impacts on the definition of group interests and is, Mama Marimba, and he says potentially political. I put potentially in the square brackets because I want to revise the use of the term potentially, and I'm going to say always. Culture is always political. There is no such thing as a apolitical culture, and there is no such thing as an acultural politic. And I know that Mama Marimba Annie will harmonize with my revising of the use of the word potential, because I would not know to revise it had it not been for her teachings, kings and queens. I hope you're all with me. All right. So we've defined culture. Now let us define religion. The great and illustrious Baba Yusuf Ben Yochanan says, religion is the deification of a people's culture. Let's pause there for a sec. What do we mean by deification? To deify is to make sacred. To deify is to make holy. To deify is to elevate a particular thing to the realms of the divine. And so, religion being the deification of a people's culture, religion is the area of people activity in which people project themselves into their highest expression, their highest manifestation, and by implication, deify it. Create social organization around wherever they conceive them to be their highest expressions or their highest manifestations in the human realm. Yeah, religion is the deification of a people's culture. Therefore, religion empowers the people in whose culture the religion is expressed. Therefore, religion empowers the people in whose culture the religion is expressed. There is no such thing, I submit to you, there is no such thing as a religion devoid of culture. There is no such thing as a religion that did not come out of a culture and a cultural expression. No such thing. All religions, all spiritual ideas and philosophies are born out of cultures and are given expression within cultures. All right, let's go forward a little more. Gonna quote somebody who is a really underrated shining star of African world history. Yeah, he goes by the name of Akot Pitek. He's from Uganda. Yes, his works are many, but we're going to quote from one of them right now, which is called Africa's Cultural Revolution. And he says, the religion of a people is perhaps the most important aspect of their culture. What they believe governs their lives. It provides their worldview. We've come across that terminology already. The general direction along which they live their lives and relate to each other and the universe. It guides them in their conduct of war and peace. It is the basis of their behavior towards one another. The knowledge of the religions of our people is the key to the knowledge of our culture. I repeat, un répéter. The knowledge of the religions of our people is the key to the knowledge of our culture. Akot Pitek, in his text, Africa's Cultural Revolution. Yeah, what he's simply emphasized. And by the way, just to say a little bit about Akot Pitek here, he's what I would consider to be a cultural scientist, a cultural revolutionist, and he becomes very, very concerned with how African people are appreciating our own culture and how we are able to use our own cultures to inform our political and economic development. And what he's saying here is that because religion is the deification of a people's culture, or what I am saying, or what I'm extrapolating from what he's saying, the knowledge of the religions of our people is the key to the knowledge of our culture itself. Why? Because within the quote-unquote religion, within the spirituality, you're going to find the ontology of the people. In other words, how our people view themselves. You're going to find the cosmology of the people. In other words, how a people understand the cosmos. And you're also going to discover the axiology of the people. In other words, the primary principles and values of the culture are going to be deified within the quote-unquote religion. Not only are you going to find the ontology, the cosmology, and the axiology, but you're going to find the highest expressions, the most sacred expressions of the ontology, the cosmology, and the axiology. We're going to move forward. I hope ones and ones are with me. Okay, this great mama is a woman by the name of Mama Frances Cress Welsing. We give thanks to her, who shall live and reign forever. To quote from my elder uncle, brother Robin Walker, when he speaks of Baba Femi Biko. So in the center here we have culture, not to dwell on the point, kings and queens, but these are all areas of people activity that are born out of culture: education, economics, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Yeah, so all of these areas of people activity are informed by culture, and all of the areas of people activity in turn inform the culture, reinforce the culture, and help the culture to evolve. As you can see, religion is one such area. Okay, these two books are by great ancestor Sheikh Anta Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop is an anthropologist, although we have issues with that word based upon how the discipline of anthropology comes about really as a colonial construct and a colonial weapon to be used against all people that Europeans colonized, but in particular African people. The book on the right is called The Cultural Unity of Black Africa: The Domains of Matriarchy, the domains of matriarchy and of patriarchy in classical antiquity. And in the book, Baba Sheikh Anta Diop is really just running down the evidence for what the book says, the fact that there is cultural unity in Black Africa. We're not going to delve deeply into that today in terms of this specific book, but I'm putting it in the presentation for people to reference, that if you want to study that a little bit more, then you can do so. And then Black Africa, the economic and cultural basis for a federated state. So based upon the evidence in the cultural unity of Black Africa, how can we use that understanding, that cultural unity, to develop an economic federated state, kings and queens? That's what he's doing in this next book, on the book on the left. The reason why we're emphasizing this is because when we say African spirituality, somebody in the audience has already said, but how can you have African spirituality? Africa is so broad, and there's so many different spiritual systems, and they're all distinct, and they're all separate, and they're all different, and they're irreconcilable. You cannot talk about an African spirituality because Africa has thousands of different religions that don't relate to each other at all. Well, we're going to explode that particular misconception right about now. And another day, we're going to dedicate our whole entire presentation just to that misconception alone and break it down so that nobody can bring their foolishness there no more. All right? But for now, kings and queens, let's go forward and just take a quote from Black Africa. And it says, a consideration of the pre-colonial African family, that of the state, the accompanying philosophical and moral concepts, emphasis mine, and the like, reveals a consistent cultural unity resulting from similar adaptations to the same material and physical conditions of life. What are we saying here? In the realms of spirituality and quote-unquote religion, what we're saying is that Africans have developed similar philosophical concepts which have been deified within our cultures, yes? And so there, as a result, religion is one of the expressions of cultural unity among African peoples. Can we demonstrate that? Yes, we can. This is an image of a shrine, yeah, the opening to a shrine of the Dogon people who mostly reside in Mali today, kings and queens. All right, I'll just put that there for aesthetic purposes so you can see the beauty. Yes, when you see images like this, kings and queens, there's a nice, beautiful European English word that they use to describe an edifice such as this. They call it idolatry. Indeed, we're going to explore idolatry a little bit later on, so stay tuned. All right. As we go forward, we're going to explore some of the common features of African spirituality. I hope ones and ones are with me, kings and queens. We got our brother M.A. Brown. We got the Western Goddess in the building. You don't know. Share the link, people. You know what I'm saying? Make sure people know that Content Over Everything is live right about now. We don't know Content Over Everything has been serving us very, very well over the last few years. And since the lockdown, you know, we haven't got a whole heap of lives from Content Over Everything, but we're there right now. So let the people them know that Content Over Everything is live right now in the lockdown, kings and queens. And we also want to big up Brother Leon and give thanks to him for hosting us through this presentation. As we go forward, kings and queens, let me do a brief time check. All right, I'm about 20 minutes in. Yeah. Right. Oh, did you want to say something, Leon?
No. She was talking about me. I just put myself big up on the screen, innit?
Bless up. All right. I'm going to take a quote now from the work of my good brother and sister, Dalian Adofo and Verona Spence Adofo. Just to say, ancestral, this is the husband and wife team behind the series, the film series and book Ancestral Voices, Kings and Queens. I encourage everyone listening right now, yeah, to get a copy of the 2 films and the book. Yeah, just don't worry about nothing. Go up on the website right now and just buy everything. Yeah, right now. Yeah, and get it delivered to you, or download the digital versions of the said materials and go into it if you want to up your knowledge, your basic knowledge of African spirituality. But the team at Ancestral Voices identify 5 primary, principal concepts through which we can speak of a unified African spiritual concept, and they are: 1, understanding of a supreme creator; 2, nature and natural forces, and I'll explain that a little bit later on; 3, ancestorhood; 4, rituals and invocationary practices; and 5, divine purpose of human beings. In other words, When we speak of an understanding of the creator, the supreme creator, when we speak of an understanding of nature and natural forces, when we speak of approaches to ancestorhood, when we speak of bodies and expressions of ritual, especially in the invocationary expressions or practices, and when we speak of divine purpose of human beings, these are 5 areas in which spiritual ideas and philosophies across African cultures are unified. This is the big claim that the team at Ancestral Voices is making. Let us see if we can substantiate this further. In the book, and by the way, this is going to be very wordy, kings and queens, yeah? So I make no apologies, yeah? But we're going to be dealing with some heavy concepts. So a whole heap of words are going to come up on the screen, but I hope to break them down for you, you know, sufficiently for your understanding. A book by the name of Person, Divinity, and Nature, a modern view of the person and the cosmos in African thought, by a brother from Nigeria. He's an Igbo brother called Chukwunyere Kamalu. He actually lives in the UK, kings and queens. He says, the destiny or spirit, double, variously known as Ka in ancient Egypt, Chi, Igbo of Nigeria, Ori, Yoruba of Nigeria, Kla, Ashanti of Ghana, Kla, Ga of Ghana, Ehi, Bini of Nigeria, Se, Fon of Benin, Ido, Kuba of Zaire, etc. The concept of the spiritual double is so called because in many African cultures, this self is thought to have 2 parts or aspects, one residing in the person's body, whilst simultaneously the other resides in the quote-unquote heavens or the invisible realm. Yeah, so we're just going through some key concepts which you can find replicated across a number of African traditions. And I'm going to be doing that throughout the presentation to give validity to the concept of African spirituality. A lot of mercy. All right, kings and queens, as we go forward, continue from the same book. The soul or breath, variously known as Ba, ancient Egypt, Emi, Yoruba, aspects of the Obi and Chi in Igbo, Se, Fon, Nshanga, Bambala, Mpuf, oh, sorry, I always pronounce this incorrectly, Mpufu, yeah, sorry, Mapufu, Kuba, Kla, Asante, etc. This aspect of the person is the individual's life force or animating principle. Continuing, the soul or breath, variously known as Ba, ancient Egypt, Emi, Yoruba, aspects of the Obi and Chi. Wait, I've read this already, innit? Sorry. Forgive me for the duplication there. The heart, this is what it should say, variously known as the Ib or Ab in ancient Egypt, the Obi in Igbo, Emi, Yoruba, etc. This will appear to be the aspect of the person which thinks and feels. Yeah, so we're just looking at concepts, yeah, within and across African cultures and spiritual conceptions that give birth to shared principles, specifically relating to the self, okay, which we will delve in a little bit later on. Ancestral guardian, variously represented as an aspect of the Ba in ancient Egypt, Mogia Ntoro in Asante, Ori in the Yoruba, Eke in the Ogbo, Joto, the Fon, Ehi in the Bini, among the Bini people. Everything in the brackets are names of people groups. Yeah, this aspect of the person in African thought represents the part of the individual which is inherited through a transmission from generation to generation. Yes, nowadays there's a concept called psychogenetic transmission, and there's also epigenetics, which suggests that there's genes that that relate to how the mind is formed and also how behavior is expressed, yeah, or gene expression, as they say. All right, the shadow, variously known as the sheut, yeah, in ancient or sheyet, yeah, sorry, I should explain. In ancient Kemet, words were generally not written with vowels, and so in reconstructing these words, vowels are often placed in to give a variable expression of how it may have been pronounced. So I've seen shayut or shawet or shayet for this particular SWYT pronunciation. the Ojiji in the Yoruba, the Oyinyo in the Igbo, the Lume Lume in the Bambala, the Edidingi, yeah, in the Kuba, the Year of the Fun, and the Igikuku in the Banrawanda, among the Banrawanda, etc., is the aspect of the physical body, which is not just an ordinary shadow cast by sunlight, yeah. That we'll get a better explanation of that later on, so I won't go into that at the moment. The point here, though, is that the concept itself can be found in a number of different cultures. Okay, all right, let's go forward. But I'm just emphasizing the point even more with some scholarship, some even more scholarship from the Encyclopedia of African Religion that was brought to us by the great and illustrious Baba Molefeketi Asante and Mama Mambo Ama Mazama, who, incidentally, kings and queens, is an initiated Mambo within the Voodoo or the Voodoo tradition. Yeah. So we have expertise from a scholastic and also a practitioner perspective with regards to this document called the Encyclopedia of African Religion. Given that we view, this is from the introduction that was actually written by Mambo Amamazama herself, yeah? Given that we viewed, and she's talking about her and Dr. Molefeketi Asante, viewed African religion as one religion and the African continent as a whole, we were inclined to introduce classical African religious ideas from the beginning of Kemet to the arrival of Christianity and later Islam in Africa, as significant forerunners of much of the continent, continental African thought. Excuse me. Making sure that I've not made a mistake here. Thank you. All right, cool. The same appeal to ethics based on religious character, the same search for eternal life, founding in living a life where good outweighs evil, and the same openness to ancestral spirits, cause as remaining among the community of the living creates an appreciation of the recurring cycle of humanity. Yeah, and I hope everybody follows that, because I'm not going to explain it right now because we've got a lot to get through. Okay, correspondences of language and concepts as with amen, amani, and imani, which are transgenerational and transcontinental, remain vibrant parts of the African legacy of religion. When the Akan use the words Kwame, Asare, and Nkwa, they recall the more ancient Amen, Asar, and Ankh. Several books, starting with the older works of Eva Meyerowitz, yeah, have examined these correspondences. Of course, in more recent times, Afrocentric authors such as Mubabinge Bilolo, Chinwezu, and Theophile Obenga have identified other correspondences in the religious and philosophical traditions. African religion dramatizes its unity in the universal appeal to the spirits that animate all of nature. Humans, stones, trees, animals, lakes, rivers, and mountains are conjoined in one grand movement towards the continuation of life. However, the entries that are included in our encyclopedia have convinced us that these ideas of reciprocity, circularity, and continuity of the human community are essential elements in the discourse on African religion. At the core of this continuity is the belief that ancestors remain active in the community of the living. Almost all other actions on earth are dependent on the eternal community that encompasses the unborn, the living, and the deceased. Forgive me for the incorrect reference at the bottom there, kings and queens. I apologize for not correcting that in the flow of the presentation. Okay, I'm going to move on, actually. Yeah, I'm going to move on. I'm going to skip that slide for the sake of time. Yeah, I'm going to skip this slide as well for the sake of time. Okay. All right. So now let's get into the substance of the thing. Obviously, we must begin by explaining some concepts of the supreme creator. Yeah. And in doing so, in doing this, I'm going to begin with a Bakongo concept of the creator, which is this is a depiction of a depiction of Nzambi as creator. Yes. And Nzambi is one of the words for the creator in Bakongo language. Yeah. What I'm about to read is taken from a text by a great elder, now ancestor, called Kimwadende Kiabunseki Fukiao. It's his PhD thesis, and it is entitled Digging Up the Past, an Approach to Fundamental Education and Development. The reason why I'm starting with this is because in his explanation, he defines some basic concepts in the Bantu, what he refers to as Bantu cosmology. Yeah. And we must understand Bantu within its cultural designation, but not in its anthropological designation as defined by Europeans. Yeah. That is another subject for another time, except to say that these concepts of Bantu, Cushitic and Afro-Asiatic and other designations that are popularized by European anthropologists are designed for the purpose of subdividing groups of African people along spurious lines, yeah, along entirely unscientific and acultural lines, yeah. And so we may discover that even what they don't define as Bantu has a relationship to the Bantu linguistically and culturally that people generally don't give a recognition of. Yeah, I'll pause to explain that, but we're going to go forward. The Bantu concept of God is a principle of Kalunga, i.e., welded opposite forces, positive and negative. So the pause for a second. Kalunga means welded opposite forces, positive and negative, in one. And for the sake of authenticity, I'm going to attempt to read the Kikongo in this the sentence. Sorry, in the reading as well. It says Banza dia Kibantu Mu'nzambi in I unklu wa Kalunga, and I don't know what the ISV stands for, so I'm going to skip that. Wa Ngolo Zabundana Kala ye Luvemba Vakimosi. Yeah. All right, kings and queens. You can give me a round of applause for my attempt at Kikongo right there. You know what I'm saying? Give me a round of applause for that still. The Munhu, yeah, that should say Muntu, sorry. Muntu is human being, okay? In Kikongo. Muntu is human being, yeah? Sees himself, himself is seen in terms of these paired forces. Nkwa Luzungu. He is a being of paired organic forces. I should explain that when Baba Kimwadende Kiabonseki Fukiao writes, yeah, he throws in a lot of Kikongo proverbs and sayings to give expression to what he is saying. Okay, so that you know that he's not like basically he's giving you the expressions or how things are expressed within the culture itself. Yeah, so these are actual proverbs and sayings among the Kikongo speakers or Bantu speakers of all descriptions. Yeah. So Nkwa Luzungu, he is a being of paired organic forces. Some are said Lumoso or Lukento, left or female, and others Lunene or Lubakala, right or male. Because all beings are resultant of the Kalunga, which is again the welded opposite forces, positive and negative in one. The complete forces made up of welded opposite forces of Kala and Luvemba, positive and negative in one. All right, we're going to spend some time, and this is going to be the longest section of the entire presentation. As a matter of fact, the whole African religion, as one can see in their aspect among the Bantu people, have two key words besides Nzambi or Kalunga. These words are Ngolo and Moyo, meaning force, energy or dynamism, and life, vitality. In other words, Ngolo is force, energy, and dynamism, and Moyo is life. It is here that the African religions in their aspect among the Bantu find the roots of their dynamism in their wholeness. Yeah, specific expressions that give expression to an understanding of wholeness within and among and through the cosmos as a whole. Okay, instead of search, now you're gonna give an appraisal now of the demonization of African spirituality. Yeah, bear with us, kings and queens. Instead of searching the sense and meaning of the Bantu aspects of African religions on this clear basis, the Eurocentric scholars found it not only important but imperative for their imperialistic intentions to label the Bantu religion on the grounds of a very negative basis. Yet this basis does not have tracks in Bantu languages. The European, they labeled these people animists and their religion animism. The word itself related to anima stroke animal says clearly what these scholars had in mind about African religion in general and about its aspects among the Bantu people in particular. Okay, that speaks for itself. By the way, kings and queens, there's no word that translates as animism, yeah, in any African language. Yeah, we want to make that very, very clear. Yeah, I might take a 10 seconds to get some water in a sec, but bear with me. The Bantu religion is not animism or animalism. Neither are the Bantu animists or animalists. Get rid of these European let me just say non-African, because it wasn't just the Europeans that labeled us animists and worse to that effect. Yeah, get rid of them. This ain't got no, these words have no validity within the culture that these words are being used to define. Okay, the Bantu people are vitalists. This is accepting themselves as well as everything in the universe as a part of Nkingu Amoyo, the principle of life in its wholeness. Remember, Moyo is life. Yeah, Nkingu pertains to wholeness. Their religion deals principally with force and vitality. A religion that does not believe in any physical being, but in Ngolo, Ye Moyo, Mudingo Dingo. Them beautiful African words. I encourage you while I'm going through this, to repeat the beautiful African words that I'm saying. All right? Words like Nzambe and Ngolo, Ye Moyo, Mudingo Dingo. Yeah. All right? Force, which means, force and life through Dingo Dingo, the natural way of life and change. Dingo Dingo is a terminology that refers to change, yes? Stages of change, and therefore, by implication, evolution. Yes? Okay. This religion can be called dynamo vitalism. KIMOYO. The religion itself is not a question of belief. It is a question of tadingo dingo, yekala mudingo dingo, which is participating in dingo dingo and being a part of dingo dingo. Once again, dingo dingo is relating to life, change, nature, and evolution. Yeah, bearing this in mind. Yeah, the Muntu human being sees his religion like dancing. Dancing is not, that should say, not a question of belief. It is a question of participating and of being part of the dance. There's two things that we got to emphasize here. First of all, now we understand what Kimoyo means. Kimoyo is dynamo vitalism. Yeah, Kimoyo is a term that translated relates to life. It relates to spirit. If you was to Google Kimoyo since February of 2018, one thing is going to come up, and that is the film Black Panther. Why? Because in the film Black Panther, they have something called Kimoyo beads. Yeah, Kimoyo beads are worn on the wrist. Yeah, and they've given all kind of technological advanced usages for them. But if you Google it, what you will get is the term Kimoyo means of the spirit. Yeah, because moyo relating to life also relates to spirit. But moyo in Swahili, if you were to look it up in Swahili, it would give you the definition of heart. There's an organization that have a chapter in the UK and in a couple of countries on the continent, principally in Ghana and Nigeria, called Moyo Wataifa. Moyo Wataifa, which means the heart of the nation. Taifa is nation, yeah? And it's a Pan-African women's organization because it's symbolizing the fact that the women are the heart of the nation, yeah? So Moyo, the word Moyo relates to life, and obviously the heartbeat, yeah? Moyo meaning heart is very specific in the sense of the fact that what we derive from that is that obviously the beating of the heart is central to the sustenance, the perpetuation of life in our current manifestation. Heart stop beating, life done, yeah, as far as the physical body is concerned. But the heart is also responsible of the body. The heart pumps blood through rhythm, yes, in the body. And so the rhythm of the body is regulated by the heart. You increase the velocity of your movement, the heartbeat speeds up because the heartbeat has to keep in time with the rest of the body so that more oxygen can be pumped through the body so that the muscles remain oxygenated and all the organs, they remain oxygenated, yeah, in the rigorous movement that is taking place. So moyo, heart, relates to life, relates to spirit. And so implicit within that, what you're understanding is the African conceptualization of this concept of spirit. Spirit is the essence of life and reality itself. Therefore, Kimoyo, keep meaning of the heart, of the spirit, of life. Dynamo, vitalism, kings and queens. That's Kimoyo. That's what Kimoyo means. And so we've emphasized this in the title of our presentation because the brother Asa Imhotep recently delivered a presentation called Kimoyo, African Religion. And he was proposing this. He seemed to be proposing this as a terminology, yeah, for referring to African spirituality. And I am harmonizing with that suggestion. I see that the terminology Kimoyo as an umbrella terminology for African spirituality to be most appropriate. Yes, which is why the presentation is called Kimoyo, why I choose African spirituality. Okay, so come back to this Baba Kiyabon Seki Fukiao's explanation here when he says it's not, the religion itself is not a question of belief. Yeah, so African spirituality is not built upon just a set of beliefs and dogmas. It is a question of tadingo dingo yakala mudingo dingo, participating in dingo dingo and being a part of dingo dingo. The muntu human being sees himself like sees his religion like dancing. Why? Because African spirituality, Kimoyo, is nature based. It's about how we harmonize with nature. Dancing is not a question of belief. It is a question of participating and being a part of the dance. I was listening to Sarnetta the other day, and a brother, who was it debating? I believe it was Chief X and brother Jabari Osazi, yeah? And a brother called, they were debating whether spirituality is still relevant, and brother Jabari Osazi, a brother called in and said that science is the grooves in a record, yeah? When he says record, he's talking about vinyl, literal record, old school vinyl, yeah? So the grooves in the record, if you know anything about vinyl, the sound is created by creating certain incisions, yeah, in the vinyl through which sound can be read, yeah? So science is the grooves in the vinyl. Spirituality is listening to the music. I can't remember the brother's name, forgive me, because I'd like to give him credit for the statement, because it was a beautiful statement. But once again, science is the grooves in the record. Spirituality is listening to the music. Yeah. I hope everyone understands where we're going with this. All right. This is why every Muntu African dances exactly in the same manner. He talks and exhorts his Ngolo and Moyo. The key words of his religion, of force and vitality, into which Nzambi, God, is not a physical being of male or female gender, but a Kalunga, or the ultimate Kalunga, the principle of opposite worlded forces in one. A principle that one can understand because inseparable with matter, only in being part of the motion through Dingo Dingo itself. What he's explaining here is the expressions of African ritual, in a sense. This is why African ritual is predominated by dance and song and drum, because the vitality of life is being expressed in all of these movements. Yeah, and the rhythm is symbolic of our harmony with nature itself, as expressions of nature itself. So we are a part of a rhythm in nature, and we express that through the rhythm of the drums and our dancing to the rhythm of the drum. Kimoyo, kings and queens. All right. Okay. Nature-based philosophy. Hope everyone's with me. All right. So this is a ancient Kemetu. We've gone from now the Congo region. Now we're going to go to ancient Kemet. Okay. All right. Kemetu representation are a particular principle which will become clear in a second. Stay tuned for the explanation. We have here a depiction of the deity Ra. Ra as manifested in the sun. Yes, Ra. If you look up a definition of Ra, you're going to get sun god. Ra is the manifestation of the creator as represented in the sun. And this is taken from the Hosea, Sacred Wisdom of Ancient Kemet. So this is a translation of the Medunetta on the walls and in the papyri of Kemet itself. Yeah. Thus said Ra, the Lord of all, Lord of the utmost limits, after he had come into being. I am the one who came into being as Keper, he who comes into being and brings into being. When I came into being, being itself came into being. All beings came into being after I came into being. Two things we need to identify here. We're defining African concepts of the creator. Right? So what are we saying here? For the African, God, quote unquote, and I have issues with the word God, that's why I always put it in quotes, yeah, because God is a concept that has become attached to a particular cultural understanding. And so when we use the word God in relation to African conceptions of the Most High Creator or the creative life force, we find that the concepts don't really match up. So we use the word God purely for communication purposes, okay? But the Lord of the utmost limits, after he had come into being, I am the one who came into being as Keper. We're going to define Keper in a second. He who comes into being and brings into being. When I came into being, being itself came into being. So the creator, the ultimate expression of the creator within an African concept, cosmology, ontology, is being itself. Yes? Creation itself. The cosmos itself. The universe itself is the creator, because the creator is he who comes into being and brings into being. When I came into being, being itself came into being. We're going to move on. What is Keper? Taken from an essay by a scholar by the name of Baba Theophile Abenga, entitled Egypt, Ancient History of African Philosophy. He says, we must devote special attention to this verb keper, not only because it occurs very frequently in ancient Egyptian texts, but also because the grammatical points discussed above are concentrated in this verb. The verb keper expresses being or existence in all its possibilities. Bear that in mind. It thus means both becoming and effecting. Included also in the meaning of the verb are the ideas of cause and effect. It is in this sense of the verb that the Creator says, I exist, and in me possibilities become existence. Keperi, keper, keperu. Yeah, in the Medjuneta. The existent exists because of the existence of the Creator. The existence, keperu, of the Creator manifests keper itself as becoming and effecting. In other words, the Creator is not just the Creator. The Creator is the creating. Keper relates to the concept that we previously were introduced to, which is dingo dingo. Dingo dingo, life through change, evolution. Keper is the same thing. Yeah? So we have the principle of life, existence, and evolution manifesting itself again. There is no genesis, but cogenesis, in the sense that existent exists by the simple fact of its inner nature. So we're not just dealing with the physical manifestation of. We're saying that all that is has an inner nature which unites all things that are, all being. Yes? Coming into being by itself, Keper, F, Jez, F, and the existence, brings out at the same time the entirety of existence. The one and the many are interlaced by the same dynamic power of the existent. One implication of this is that matter and spirit are two aspects of the same reality. In other words, the seen and the unseen are two aspects of the same reality. Try to deal with matter without spirit, and what you have is incomplete, because matter and spirit do not just lie side by side, they are inextricably connected together. Yeah, we're just gonna get some from that now. So we've just defined Keper. Yeah, again, life, existence, evolution. Now we're gonna quote from Brother Robin Walker, the great and illustrious #1 Black historian on the planet, from his book Blacks and Religions, Volume 1. These principles were presented as male and female pairs. Yeah, he's just given an explanation of the Kemetu cosmology. Okay, so this is actually the creation story. Or composite expressions of creation stories within Kemet over time. Yeah, understanding that creation stories evolved in Kemet and were added to, and so on and so forth. Yeah, as male and female, they represent potential, just as a man and a woman have a potential to produce. The first pair are Nun and Nunet, which mean the primeval waters and represent nothingness. The second pair are Hu and Huhet, which represent boundlessness or infinity. The third pair are Kuk and Kuket, which represent darkness. The fourth pair are Amen and Amenet, which represent the hidden. These are all potential. This is now the cosmology, yes, of ancient Kemet. So they see the universe or its primary fundamental forces as composite values of complementary pairs. Yeah, all right. Now, bearing in mind, something's missing here. Sorry, let me explain something here. Bearing in mind, yeah, that so what happens is when these pairs reproduce, yeah, from the primeval waters, Nun and Nunet, which represent nothingness, when they reproduce, things come into being. Yeah. The second pair are Hu and Huhet, yeah, which represent boundlessness and infinity. Yes. When they reproduce, boundness and finiteness come into being. The third pair are Kuk and Kuket, which represent darkness. When they reproduce, light comes into being. The fourth pair are Amen and Amenet, which represent the hidden. When they reproduce, the seen comes into being. Yeah, and in essence, that represents our capacity to observe and interact with the universe. Okay. I'm just demonstrating some different concepts of the creator in African traditions. This is Amma. Amma is from the Dogon. Yeah. And I'm gonna make a point here. Just remember the point for future reference. What you see on your left-hand side is a mask. Yeah. The mask at the top of the mask is a symbol that represents Amma. The mask is worn in certain ceremonies, and the dance that is done with the mask, yeah, representing Amma, is a spiraling rotation movement, yeah. So the person wearing the mask rotates, and on their own axis, and rotates around the axis of something central to itself, yeah. And the arms are spread out wide, and this represents Amma spreading her essence to create creation. Yeah. Okay. So just bear that in mind. Remember it, because it's going to come up again later on. All right. From the book The Pearl Fox. Yeah. So what happens is, in the 1930s, two Europeans, they're French, go to Mali, and they're reasoning with the Dogon elders, initiates, and so on and so forth. And they write a couple books, yeah, on what the Dogons teach them about their traditions. Okay, one of them is called the Pearl Fox. The individuals are called Marcel Griol, and why have I forgotten his first name? Anyway, the Terlin, yeah, is his surname, yeah. And we're going to define the term Amma now. Yeah, we're going to give a literal definition of the term Amma. Amma is the word, the most predominant word for the creator, the most high creator, the all-encompassing creator in Dogon, yeah, language. Okay, Dogon language, which is called Dogoso, and their spiritual language is called Sigiso, yeah, which is a language that is designed for the purpose of recitation. Okay, let's point that out. The word Amma means to hold firm, to embrace strongly, to keep in the same place. One calls Amma's name all day long. One calls him, and they've used the pronoun him, but within the cosmology, there is no him. Yeah, Amma is genderless. Okay, so I'm going to replace any hymns with it from now on. When the day begins, it is Hogon, which is chief of the scheme. It is Hogon of the wasters. Amma arranges the scheme of things after he has wasted. That's a cycle in life: waste, production, birth, yeah, and all these things. All right. Amma 1 is space 14-fold, and I'm still delving into the significance of the 14-fold. So forgive me for not giving an explanation of that, but in future presentations I will. To pronounce the name Amma is to preserve all space. The name Amma is the preservation and safekeeping of all things. So again, we're reinforcing that Amma is existence itself. Existence comes into existence when Amma comes into existence, because Amma is existence. But pay attention to this idea of holding firmly, to embrace, yeah, strongly, and all these things. Pay attention to that. All right. This is a depiction of one of the most popular goddesses coming out of ancient Kemet, which is Maat. Maat, Ma, which is the root word of Maat, basically means the real, reality. Again, the creator is reality. That is that which is genuine and authentic, as opposed to artificial or spurious. Maat is reality as a whole. That is the totality of all things possessing actuality, yeah? Existence or essence. Ma'at is that which exists objectively. In fact, Ma'at is that which has necessary and not just contingent existence. This is why Ma'at is everywhere and pervades all creation. It is said, for example, that Amen is the term for the creator in the creator's creative instinct. Yeah. So you get variously Amen or Pata. Yeah, and then you get like Kanum as the former, yes, the person or the deity that forms the creation. Okay, and so in one sense, yeah, you hear that Amen created the universe with Ma'at. So what we're dealing with here is not two different deities. we're dealing with two different expressions of the deity. Yes? Amen is the creative instinct. Ma'at is the order, is personification or anthropomorphification of the order within which the creation is created. I'll go forward. It means that that Ma'at is pertinent to all the spheres of reality, the divine or sacred, the cosmic, the physical, the political, and the familial. Bear that in mind. In short, Ma'at is an exhaustive and comprehensive concept. How exhaustive and comprehensive is Ma'at? This all-inclusiveness makes it an orderly and aesthetically coherent whole, which is why Ma'at also means orderliness of totality of existence. Accordingly, everything in the universe that is real and orderly is an expression or manifestation of Ma'at. In particular, when in society, human beings conduct themselves in the proper way or perform in the correct way, they are manifesting Ma'at. Hence, these other meanings of Ma'at: truth, justice, righteousness, rightness, and there are other meanings: truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, reciprocity, order, yeah, is all Ma'at. Ma'at is the highest conception of physical and moral law known to the ancient Egyptians. This is literal in the sense of the fact that the legal system was governed by the laws of Ma'at in ancient Kemet. Thus it is that the goddess Ma'at was a personification of law or order, rule, truth, righteousness, canon, justice, straightforwardness, integrity, uprightness, conscientiousness, and perfection. Egyptian civilization was built upon this very inclusive concept with its great fecundity of meaning. However, to talk Ma'at is of no use if it is not practiced. In truth, Ma'at is a way of life and spirituality. Yeah. So this is how we understand now that African morals and ethics and law is derived from the laws of nature, because the African sees him herself as a manifestation of the laws of nature, but in its particular manifestation, in order to connect to the wholeness, one must be in harmony with the wholeness. So you derive your laws from nature itself. All right. I hope ones are with me so far. So this is why, remember, reason number one, African spirituality, KIMOYO, is nature-based. There is no higher authority within the African conceptualization than nature itself. So all things, all lessons derive from nature. Yeah. Reason number one, why I choose African spirituality, KIMOYO, because it is nature-based. Okay. Right. Couple more examples of African spiritual concepts of the creator. Chukwu, chi, as we heard earlier, is the definition or word for spirit in Igbo. Chukwu is a composite word which is chi, uku. Chi, spirit, uku, great, the great spirit. Yeah, and Afa is a term for divination and wisdom. Yeah, in Igbo. Chukwu creates the universe from two complementary principles: Aku, yeah, which is rest, inactive, contractive, feminine, and reflective principles, and Obi, yeah, which is motion, active, expansion, masculine, thoughts, etc. This is found in the book After Goddess Dibia by Dr. Ume. Yeah, so I'm hoping you're seeing again the representation of complementary forces. Okay, that's what I'm emphasizing here. Yeah, I'm probably gonna skip this. Yeah, I'm gonna skip this. But it's there. So when you watch it back, no, I'm gonna read one section. Yeah, to see how when you have these conceptualizations, how new knowledge can be incorporated into these concepts. Yeah, the earth deity Onile or Aye in Yoruba, Onile or Aye is earth. Yeah, it's feminine too. Yeah, when I say feminine too, he's emphasizing. Sorry, this is written by in the book, yeah, the Holy Odu, yeah, in the introduction, which is written by Ianifa Iafunfun Fayele Fasegun Tunde, yeah, and she's emphasizing, she's breaking down the linguistics or the meanings of the terms Olurun and Oludumare, which are Yoruba terms for the Most High Creator. Odu in Oludumare pertains to womanhood or the womb, yeah. And so the earth deity Onile or Aye is feminine too. The power of the Babalawa resides in the Odu, the womb, the feminine deity. As the Ashe, which is life force energy of God, passes to the visible realm through Oludumare, polarities are created. Electromagnetism and gravity. Electromagnetism or light energy is expansive, thus masculine, and carries the atoms, molecules, particles of creation. It is gravity that is contractive, thus feminine, that pulls the elements together to create form, like stars, planets, etc. Yeah. So if we was to relate that now to the Kemetu, Amen would be the expansive, Maat would be the contractive. Yeah. Bearing that in mind, just pointing that out. All right. Literal definitions. Oluru. Yeah. Ol means owner of, Oru, the invisible realm. Oftentimes you see heavens. You see Olurun defined as the master of the heavens, but heavens is a bit of a misnomer only because of the concept that we have of heaven, which is this place that we go to, which is perfect, and in that, which is not the Yoruba or the Ifa concept. Yeah, the Yoruba concept of heavens is the invisible realm. Okay, then now you have Oludumare, which I've come across two different explanations for this word. One is Ol, once again, owner of, Odu, which is womb, and Oshumare, which is light. Yeah, and Oshumare is an Orisha in and of itself. I'm going to explain what Orisha is, but Orisha is the forces of nature, and Oshumare is light, but personified or anthropomorphized within a serpent or snake divinity, the snake that carries the rainbow, yeah, in its mouth. Okay, but Oshumare pertains to light. Yeah, obviously the colors of the rainbow are about light. Okay. Or Oludumare, if you know anything about Yoruba, there's a lot of contractions in Yoruba. Yoruba words are made up of a lot of contractions here. So Ol, again, owner of, Odu, which is womb, Dudu, which is black, yeah, and then Oshumare or Mare, which is light, yeah. So we understand where these concepts are getting to. We're talking about the owner of the womb of creation that brings forth light, the owner of the womb that of darkness, which brings forth the light, yeah. That's what Oludumare relates to, yeah. In another definition, you get the fact that Olurun, being the owner of the invisible realm, is the creator in that manifestation, the invisible manifestations. Oludumare is the creator when the creator wants to create, comes into manifestation. Yeah, so Oludumare is the creator or the portal that Olurun created to bring things into manifestation. Okay. All right, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to read one definition, yeah? Two definitions. Onyame, the name, this is in the Akan now, the Akan of the Ashanti, yeah? The Ashanti language, the Chi language, this definitions for the creator. A name, Onyame is a name for God, signifying especially the absolute consciousness of being or wisdom. Bear that in mind, this word consciousness. So the creator is ultimate consciousness, yeah? And other man, a name of God, universal, eternal, pervasive, omnipresent, and absolute consciousness of being that lived and became. So Odaman, is the creator in the becoming form, when the creator is bringing things into existence. How long have I been speaking? Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to be very, very fast. Yeah. Forces of nature. This is just an explanation of the pantheons, the different so-called pantheons. Yeah. So in many African traditions, what you have are names for pantheons of divinities that relate to natural principles. Yeah. So again, I'm just emphasizing the fact that this is existent in many different traditions. Okay. Netelu, which is Kemet, the Orisha, which is the Yoruba, the Loa, which is Fon, the Abasom, which is the Akano, the Ashanti, the Kipungulu, sorry, which is the Bakongo, Imandua, which is the Banrwanda, the Alusi, sorry, which is the Ibo, the Ayana among the traditional spiritual system of the Odomo, and the Somali, which is known as Wakafena, and you have the Nomo among the Dogon. Yeah, these are all I say pantheons. They're communities of divinities. Yeah, and each divinity within it relates to a principle in nature, a force of nature, and each of the forces of nature are given principles and values for human cultivation. Sometimes these pantheons are not necessarily definitively codified in a singular sense, yeah, but what you generally find is a name for the creator as personified in the earth itself, okay? And so within that, rituals and forces in nature within the local environment are given sacred representation, yeah, rivers or trees or wherever. In the Akan, the term for the Mother Earth is Asasaya, and in the Zulu, the term for Mother Earth is Nokulbuane. Yeah, I'm just giving a examples. Yeah, I'm giving examples. Okay, all right. Mwari, as explained by Brother Leader Banaka, this is what I was given when I was growing up, yeah, is the totality of the universe manifested in all that is. The nature of Mwari is therefore coded and manifested in the universe itself. That is to say, the laws of nature. Thus, nature is the manifest character of Mwari. Yeah? Nature is the manifest character of Mwari, the creator. Since nature is the manifest character of Mwari, harmonizing with the laws of nature is submission or obedience to the will of Mwari. Thus, we imbibe the attributes of Mwari and strive to accomplish the divine purpose of being. How this is explained in the Yoruba or Ifa or Isese or Isheshe, quote unquote religion, yeah, is thusly taken from the book, the handbook of Yoruba religious concepts. The Yoruba contend that the study of nature is foremost. Nature is viewed as the manifestation of Olodumare's essence through degrees of material substance. That essence, translated as Ashe, is the inherent force of all creation, and the emphasis of such study or worship is not centered on the physical object or tangible, but the life force energy that brings about its form. The tangible object is but a symbol of the eternal existence that bore it. Yeah, this table just gives an explanation of the 7 most popular Odisha and their nature principles, as well as their human cultivation principles. Yeah, so Obatala, creator of the human form. This is the divinity that Olodumare gave the task of forming or shaping the things in creation. Is the elder of the Orisha. He represents wisdom, purity, morality, strategy, high intelligence, etc., etc., etc. Elegba, messenger of the Orisha, carrier of offerings to the Orisha, policeman of the Yoruba cosmology, guardian of the crossroads, the holder of the Ashe. This basically symbolizes the fact that Elegba or Eshu, yes, is the divinity that is our link between the material and the immaterial. Ogun is the divinity associated with iron, and all implements created from iron or metal. War, creator of civilization. Ogun is a nation builder. He represents courage, strength, justice, etc., etc. Yemonja is the mother of the waters. That's large expanses of water, oceans. Yeah, and so that represents motherhood. Those large expansions of oceans are also representative of the amniotic fluid in which the babies that we give birth to, or that our sisters give birth to, dwell within before giving birth. Yemon Yara represents family, and all kind of different things. She is the equivalent of Noon, yeah, in the Kemetic cosmology that we introduced to earlier, okay? Or sure, sensuality, fine arts, humanities, love, beauty, graciousness. Oshun is the divinity associated with fresh and running water, yeah, rivers and lakes and these kinds of things. And you have Shango, which is the divinity associated with thunder, lightning, and fire. And his attributes are he's a kingly, yeah, stately orator, sorcery, indeed, virility, dance, music, drums. Yeah, all drums in Ifa are considered to be Shango's property, masculinity, and all these things. Oya, tempest, guardian of the cemetery. Oya is the divinity associated with wind. Yeah, so she's hurricane, storms, and she's a warrior. She's also the priesthood associated with Oya deals with the Egun, which is the ancestors. Okay, all right, and so now we get to ancestors. Oh, let me just explain. So what we're dealing with here is the forces of nature. So an understanding of these forces of nature is how you derive laws, and all of the rituals are about reinforcing this harmony with nature. I'm going to move very quickly through the ancestor thing, yeah, just so we can get to the end. Okay, the status of ancestors is not one achieved automatically by death. There are conditions to be fulfilled. The individual would have lived a long, dutiful life to their families and to the society at large. The individual is held to be an enlightened being, one that has achieved self-realization as reflected in the title given to them by the Akan, Nana. The Akans hold that the state of Nanahood as the goal of the fulfillment of human life. The phrase Nananom in Samanfo, meaning the giver of and source of enlightenment, is the invocation used when the Akan prays at any time to the supreme deity. And the reference is there. Yeah. Then you have the concept of deified ancestors. So the stories of ancestors that have done an exceptionally good work, yeah, in servitude to the community are therefore deified, and in the mythology to preserve that example for future generations. Yeah, I'm not going to read it for the sake of time. We're going to go forward, but what is exemplified in the terminology of Nana, or the state of Nanahood in the Akan, also exists in the ancient Kemetu. Yeah. Now, in the Kemetu cosmology, the slide that somehow I've missed out of the presentation was going to explain how the different elements of creation are brought into existence from the pairs that were mentioned before. So you have Nut and Geb, which is the heavens and the earth. Yeah. Then you have Shu and Tefnut, which is Shu air, and Tefnut, which is moisture or water. Yes. And then Shu and Tefnut give birth to Asar, Oset, Set, and Nebhet. Yeah. And Asar, Oset, Set, and Nebhet become the exemplars of our human characteristics. Yes, I should really say that. So therefore, Asar and Oset represent our human nature when we are abiding by the order of nature. Set and Nebhet are the opposites. Yeah. So Asar and Oset become the deities, or the deification of the perfection of the human being. Okay. And so within that, Nanahood in the Akan is Asarhood within the Kemetu. Yeah. And so within the book of coming forth by day, which is misnomer the book of the dead, you have this concept of when an ancestor passes away, the text relating to the ancestor, should they have lived a good and exceptional life, relates the personage of Asar to the deceased. Yeah. So the most popular example of the so-called Book of the Dead is what is called the Papyrus of Ani. Okay. And so Ani, now, when he goes through the trials and tribulations in the Duat, yeah, which is the quote unquote underworld, yeah, inefficient terminology, but we'll use it for that purpose. Yeah. When you pass away, your spirit, your soul has to go through certain trials and tribulations before being allowed into the court of Asar to receive judgment. Okay, and once you have passed all trials and tribulations, and Asar has judged you rightly, or declared you Maat Keru, which is true of voice, you become a personification of Asar. So Ani now is no longer just Ani. Ani is the Asar Ani, and I hope everybody understands that. Yeah. And so the book of coming forth by day says, or the Pert Emheru, the book of coming forth by day says, the town of Unu is open. My head is sealed up. Jehuti. Perfect is the eye of Heru. I have delivered the eye of Heru, which shineth with splendors on the brow of Ra, the father of the Netel. I am the self-same Asar, the dweller in Amentet. Asar knoweth his day, and he knoweth that he shall live through his period of life. I shall have by being him. Sorry, period of life. I shall have by being with him. I am the moon god Ah, which is also incidentally pronounced Yah, the dweller among the netter. I shall not come to an end. Stand up, therefore, O Heru, for thou art counted among the netter. The netter, as previously explained, is the pantheon of natural forces and deities within the KIMOYO. So basically, being declared in the perfection of being is you now associate yourself with nature and the natural forces. Yeah. Finally, here, the Asa Ani saith, I am the great one, the son of a great one. I am fire, the son of fire, the one to whom was given his head after it had been cut off. I am the Asa. Sorry. The head of Asa was not carried away from him. Let not the head of Asa Ani be carried away from him. I have knitted myself together. I have made myself whole and complete. I have renewed my youth. I am Asa, the Lord of eternity. There may not there needs to be more explanation of this in terms of what Asa represents and Osset represents, but we don't have time for that right now. If you want more explanation, ask me about it in the Q&A and we'll come back to it, kings and queens. But I'm just giving you this as an example of sacred text and sacred scripture within ancient Kemet. Yeah, I thought it was important to just give examples of sacred scripture. Okay, I'm going to skip this slide, but you can see me there at my initiation ceremony with my Balid. All right, but it just explains why we do libation and why we honor our ancestors. Yeah, now, taken from the book Civilizational Barbarism and Authentic Anthropology by Sheikh Anta Diop. Yeah, he says, we have said earlier that a people without a historical conscience is a population. The loss of national sovereignty and of historical conscience following a prolonged foreign occupation engenders stagnation or even sometimes regression, disintegration, and a partial return to barbarism. But then, sorry, I should explain what he's doing here in this book here, in this chapter. Sorry, he's dealing with culture, and he breaks down culture into three primary factors, which is the historical, the linguistic, and the psychic. Yeah, according to Sheikh Anta Diop, these are the three principal domains that make up culture: the historical, the linguistic, and the psychic. Yeah, or the psyche domains. So this is taken from his breakdown of the historical. Yes, understanding that what is history but the record of our ancestors. Yeah, so that's how it links into this section of the presentation. Now bear this in mind. But then what would we call an African history? We need to distinguish two levels. The immediate one of the local history, so dear and deeply lived, in which the African people segmented by diverse exterior forces, the principle of which is colonization, are shriveled up, find themselves trapped, and are vegetating today. So what he's saying is that we got the word that we use commonly to refer to what he's referring to here is the concept of tribe. Yeah, and what he's saying is that these tribes are people groups that have been fragmented through epochs of history, the principle of which is colonization. There are other epochs with relation to migrations because of environmental forces and other invasions into the continent and these kinds of things. Okay, but he's saying that these small groups, we are vegetating within them today because we have a concept of historical continuity, but not a macro concept of historical continuity. Okay, which he's going to refer to here. A second level, more general, further off in time and space, and including the totality of our people, comprises the general history of Black Africa insofar as research permits, restoring it today from a purely scientific approach. Each history is thus pinpointed and correctly situated in relation to the general historical coordinates. Thus, all the continent's history is reevaluated according to a new unitary standard, situated to revive and to cement on the basis of established fact all of the inert elements of the ancient historical mosaic. Case in point, what he's doing here is attempting to bring African history into what he calls in other texts a grand historical African epic. Now, what I am saying is that because if we deal with what Akot Pitek said earlier, we look at the role of religion in African culture, of spirituality in African culture, and how African spirituality carries the ontology and the axiology and the cosmology of the people. African spirituality, Kimoyo, as a broad concept, has the wherewithal to achieve what Sheikh Anta Diop is referring to right here. That is the argument that I'm making. Yes? Another reason why I choose Kimoyo, African spirituality, is because of the power potential within it for uniting, culturally and historically uniting African people. Or let me say it like this, in what Sheikh Anta Diop is saying, restoring the cultural unity of African people. Why I say restoring is because we're emphasizing the fact that it is an actual fact. Yeah, we're not making up, we're not forcing the thing. It did it. What we want to do now is bring together the different elements that make that cultural unity a living reality. And within African spirituality is the means to do so. If you don't understand why, ask me in the Q&A. Not going to read this, but we're dealing with the self now, concepts of the self. I'm going to try and wrap up in like 10, 15 minutes, yeah? And we'll open up here. Concepts of the self. I'm making the argument, another reason why I choose African spirituality. I'm making the argument that African concepts of the self, if and when developed, have the wherewithal to allow us to develop a science of the self, a science of the mind, a psychology that is second to none. What you see on the screen is my composition of the work of two scholars. One is Naim Akbar, the psychologist, and two is George G.M. James, the historian. Naim Akbar was commissioned to write on the science of the mind from an ancient Kemetu perspective by the great Ivan van Sertima in his book, Egypt, Child of Africa. And Naim Akbar wrote a paper called Ancient Egypt and the Origin of the Science of the Mind. Thank you, my darling, my babes. My queen just gave me some water, you know. So we're going to take a while to sip the water, the H2O. Give thanks, give thanks. Maybe my voice was sounding crusty, and she realized that. All right. So within the paper now, yeah, Naim Akbar explores the parts of the soul as documented in the Pert Emheru, the Book of Coming Forth by Day. Yeah. And he collates the research of other quote-unquote Egyptologists like Gerald Massey, like E. Wallace Budge, and like George G.M. James. Yeah. He collates them and from a psychologist's perspective attempts to define these different concepts and their modern day application within the field of African-centered psychology. Yeah. I'm not going to read through all of the explanation, but it's been up here long enough for you to be able to pause the video and the playback and come to it. But these are parts of the soul. The reason why I've collated the Akbar and George G.M. James's work is because Akbar deals with 7 parts of the soul. George G.M. James deals with 9 parts of the soul. Whereas I find that Akbar's definitions and explanations are more applicable to functional reality today. George G.M. James deals with 2 parts of the soul that Akbar doesn't deal with. Principally, the Shekem and the Ren. Yeah, Shekem is power, innate power. Yes, potential. In other words, the capacity to do and create. And then the Ren is the name. And I'm going to read the name one. It says the name or the essential attribute for the preservation of the being. We remember or we keep our ancestors alive by being able to call their names. Yeah, the Egyptian believe that in the absence of a name, an individual cease to exist. And the reason why we add the name in here is because of its political importance. In the enslavement of African people and the colonization of African people by other cultures, one of the main things that colonizers have done is seek to take away our names or taint our value for our names. And names in every African culture are very important. So names as a part of the soul, as a part of who we are, as a part of our psyche is very important. So that's why I've collated those two great scholars' research, yeah? Another concept of the self comes with the Ori. The Ori in Yoruba it literally means head. Spiritually, it relates to the concept of consciousness, yeah? Taken from the Handbook of Yoruba Religious Concepts, Okenyiwa and a Fubuni, state the word Ori the word Ori has many meanings. Literally, Ori means head. It means the apex of all things, the highest of any endeavor in the human body. Ori is divided into two, the physical head and the spiritual head. The spiritual head is also subdivided into the Ori Apari, and which is the inner head, and the internal or spiritual Ori, and the Ori Ode, the physical head. I'm going to move on for the sake of time. It is revealed in the Odu, which is the sacred scripture of the Ifa tradition. Ogunda, which is one of the Odu, yeah, there's 16 Odu, Ogunda is one of them, that no God blesses a person without the consent of their Ori. Forgive me, because that should have been highlighted. Once again, no God blesses a person without the consent of their Ori. One whose Ori has accepted a sacrifice is one who should rejoice exceedingly. In all forms of ritual sacrifice, offerings are placed at the center or the top of the head. This is due to the Ori and the to Ori and the appeasement of the Ori and divine nature. So basically, one's own consciousness, yeah, is principle in how one relates to the world, the cosmos. There is no divinity that can bless you beyond your own consciousness. That's what that is saying. Yeah. So Ori is the as the apex of all things. Mean it is the in our human experience, it is the primary concern. Yeah. Because mind controls thoughts and thoughts control behavior, all of our actions is developed on how we cultivate our mind. The term Orisha, is actually a combination of two words. Ori, which is the reflective spark of human consciousness embedded in the human essence, and Sha, which is the ultimate potentiality of that consciousness to enter into or assimilate itself into divine consciousness. The human consciousness needs to pass through stages of development in order to attain the highest levels. The Orisha symbolize the forces and forms of human divinity potential. In Herbak, which is a book, it is written that Herbak is a book that is explaining the Kemetu initiatory process, yeah, the process that you go through to become a priest, yeah, in ancient Kemet. The Netters, divine beings, Orisha. Netters in ancient Kemet is Orisha in Ifa or Orisese, yeah, are an expression of the principles and functions of divine power manifesting in nature. Their names and images are pictured in the myths, as pictured in the myths, define such principles and functions as they are offered, that the student may learn to know them and seek them in him, herself. In him, herself. The concept maintained by the ancients of Egypt and West Africa is evident, though somewhat dismissed in all forms of religious and spiritual development. The Yoruba maintain that the worship of the Orisha assists in the development of Iwa Pele. The Iwa Pele is the purpose of human living within Yoruba or Ifa religiosity. Yeah, Iwa Pele means balance character or balanced attitude, that the most important purpose of a person on earth is to come and exhibit that character and attitude. Religion as a custom of worship is not a man's purpose. It is not the purpose of humanity to worship. Listen carefully. It is not man's purpose, but only a means to an end, while the end in and of itself is Iwapele. Through Iwapele or Iwapele Balanced character is Nanahood, Asarhood, the perfection of the self. Thus, the fundamental reality in respect to the divinity of the self and the heavenly forces is that of pure, enlightened character development. The connection between one's consciousness, Ori, and one's behavior, Iwapele, is clearly seen as reciprocal and relative. That is, the more enlightened one's consciousness becomes in respect to the divine, the more one's behavior reflects the divine. Thus, the individual is deemed saintly or priestly in their development. Another reason, I think I'm on that reason number 4 now. Because this is a way of life, the African doesn't wait to go and see a psychologist or a therapist before the African engages in self-analysis, self-cultivation, and consciousness. Mental health is a way of life for African people. Because the rituals not only symbolize our harmony and connection with nature and the cosmos, but also symbolize and reinforce our own character development, the principles and values of our own character development. So a ritual is a visit to the psychologist or the psychiatrist. A ritual is therapy, where you go through the process of assessing the self in relation to the family, which we get when we go into this concept of Ubuntu, yeah? As explained in this saying in Zulu, umuntu ungumuntu ungabantu. A person is a person because there are people. So the person is not connected to the cosmos. The person only has relevance as a person because of the connection to the community, the other people. Yes? And so rituals realign and harmonize the community with itself and with the cosmos. All right? I'm going to skip this, but I may come back to it in the Q&A. I'm going to skip this as well. But this gives explanation of how African centered psychologists today are developing on these concepts in the discipline of psychology. The principal person in relation to this particular quote is an elder by the name of Wade Nobles. All right. So I'm going to skip all of this for the sake of time. Yeah. And I'm going to end on this ritual stuff. Okay. All right. Pay attention, kings and queens. We're on the final leg. I hope you're all with me. Yeah, I hope you're all with me. I'm going to take a sip of this water before we go forward. What I'm going to do now is explain African ritual and explain how that ritual consciousness manifests itself in the Caribbean, in the Americas. Because we never left which tradition during slavery. Okay? Firstly, our great and illustrious Mama Marimba Ani, in this great and illustrious book, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, explains African ritual. African life is replete with ritual. It states interrelationship with other beings in the universe. Ritual sacrifice symbolizes the principles of interdependence and reciprocity. It is through ritual that the unexplainable is understood. It is through ritual that the unexplainable is understood. I love that. That chaos is made to be ordered within the logic of tradition. It is through ritual that trauma is avoided, crises dealt with and overcome, and difficult transitions are perceived as passages between stages of normal growth and development. Universally, in ritual, the African combines life with artistic expression. Ritual is, in essence, artistic expression relates to this concept of dynamic vitalism, flamboyance, charisma. Yeah, ritual is in a sense the ultimate philosophical expression of the African worldview, for it is the modality within which the unity of the human and the divine is expressed, in which the unity of spirit and matter is perceived, and in which the eternal moment is achieved. All right. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of this now. This is a story within the Yoruba or Ifa cosmology, yeah? And you're going to see how stories of the divinity relates to the political social order of the people, okay? The story itself relates to Obatala and Shango. Yeah, Obatala, which is the Orisha of ritual purity. Obatala is one of the if not the oldest Orisha. Yes, and so therefore symbolizes the nation, the people at the beginning of their spiritual consciousness. Yeah, Shango is the divinity associated with fire, thunder, lightning, and other things, but is also associated with a particular king at a particular time in history. And so Obatala and Shango also have priesthoods associated with them, and the rest will explain. Those who are responsible for spreading the Shango cult would certainly have to contend with the popular Obatala cult, which went back to time immemorial. The time before Oduduwa. Oduduwa is the progenitor of the Yoruba nation, yeah? And expressing the fact of its invincibility even in the face of an Oduduwa takeover of the land, yeah? Time doesn't know how to explain that, but just understand that at different points, different forces were dominating what was happening in Yoruba land, yeah? The contention between Obatala worshippers and the vanguard of the cult of Shango was depicted in later myths and ritual plays. Such myths speak of Obatala and Shango as friends. The story is told that Obatala once decided to pay a visit to his friend Shango and insisted on going in spite of an oracular prediction of an ill-fated journey. It happened that as he got near to his friend's kingdom, he saw his friend's horse, which had escaped, and he took it in order to return it to his friend Shango. Shango's servants, who did not recognize him, took him for a thief. They held him and put him in prison, where he languished for 7 years. During the period, however, Shango's kingdom was struck by climactic fortunes which made life in society miserable. When consulted, the oracle pointed to an innocent man languishing in jail. Shango later identified his friend Obatala and had him released. This myth and the ritual plays connected with it, bear that in mind. So now this myth and the rituals, there are ritual plays that give expression to this myth, yes? Established that the Obatala cult as only one among others, able to assert its lasting quality only through its moral strength, particularly through loyalty, patience, and long-suffering. If Obatala represents Ile-Ife and Shango represents Oyo, which is one of the empires of the Igbo, the implication for social history and relationships among the Yoruba is clearly that Ile-Ife has to accept being just one among other Yoruba towns, yet having a moral and spiritual influence among all. It is significant that this simple truth has been ritualized, yeah? So evidently, this ritual drama gives expression to a particular time of discord within the Yoruba nation, between those who were devoted to the shrine of Obatala and those who were devoted to the shrine of the Shango. Yeah, and so the ritual is designed to reconcile those differences. Okay, I hope ones understand the significance of that. Then we're gonna go into the final thing, which is the Kumina. All right, the Kumina. Yeah, that Kumina. Kumina is an African retention that we have in the Caribbean, most strongly represented in Jamaica, where my paternal lineage derived from. Yeah. Now, this is taken from the research of a sister by the name of Diane M. Stewart in an essay called Kumina, a Spiritual Vocabulary of Nationhood in Victorian Jamaica. The book that this essay is housed in is called Victorian Jamaica. All right. Kumina and the Congo Nation. Olabi Yai theorizes the specific nation practices of African descendants in Western diasporas, offering a promising foundation for future studies of Africana culture and consciousness. He concludes that in the Americas, Africans had to invent new institutions with which to with which they could cultivate their customs and perpetuate the memory of Africa. Content, I beg you just maximize the presentation for now, because I want everybody to just get the all that way we are dealing with, right? Yes, sir. Yeah. And yeah, and nothing else. All right. Give thanks, give thanks, give thanks. And thus live a meaningful life. Cabildos de Nación in Cuba, which were associations of Africans based on cultural affinities, African Catholic lay brotherhoods and sisterhoods in Brazil, and more importantly, religious institutions such as Candomblé in Brazil, Santeria in Cuba, Kumina in Jamaica, and the African American Church in the United States are prominent instances of such invented institutions. Yai is on point when he concludes that Kumina, in his thesis, excuse me, I misread that. Yai is on point when he includes Kumina in his thesis, because mirroring social organization patterns of their kin in the visible world, the African gods are from tribes and nations. Yeah, bear this in mind. You've seen a lot of nation talk, yeah? This unnamed informant went on to explain to anthropologist Joseph Moore the significance of Manuka Vola and the definitive nations comprising the Kumina community. Take Manuka Vola. He is a great ancestor spirit who now is so strong he become a strong earthbound god, small g, on the whole of the whole Congo nation. There are 5 divisions or groups in the Congo nation. We got Moyenge, who Manuka Vola serves since he is the head of this group. We got Machunde, we got Congo, we got Mondogo, and we got Mumbaka. Honored as a tribal head and renowned for his rainmaking abilities, Manuka Vola, or Manuka Mvula, hailed from Morant Bay. He was established in Johnston, an area near Duhaney Pen, when he died in 1928 around the age of 80. This celebrated ritual specialist most likely assumed a leading role in Kumina ceremonies among later generations of liberated Central Africans who took up residence in post-emancipation Jamaica. For Vola is remembered as a very old African born in Africa. Right. Now, what you see on your left-hand side, yeah, is what is called a cosmogram, yeah, or in Kikongo, dikenga. Cosmograms are visual or graphic depictions of the cosmos, yeah? And so you'll find this cosmogram in the work of the elder who I referenced earlier by the name of Kimwadende Kiabonseki Fukiao. Okay, now we're going to see how African spirituality in the Americas is linked to African spirituality on the continent of Africa. All right, I'm not going to do too much explaining. I'm just going to read. Yeah, so bear with me. All right, we're nearly there. The Congo cosmogram, the Kenga Congo, allows us to map aspects of Kumina devotees' foundational sense of the cosmos, family, and nation. In Africa and Jamaica, Congo people's perception of the world might be described as cyclical and spiral. Forgive, I should have deleted the footnote there. But their understanding of life and the human beings, Muntu, life journey is informed by reflection on the nature of the cosmos, deities, power, and planetary formation. Yeah, once again, the understanding of life and the human being life journey is informed by reflection on the nature of the cosmos, deities, power, and planetary formation. The human being is also conceived as a microcosm of the entire cosmos, and the spirit medicines, Minkisi, available to humans are managing life are manufactured from energies of fundamental planetary life forms. Yeah, thought to develop across 4 stages of 4 life stages. Yeah, Musoni, which you see here at the bottom under the yellow, right? Which is let me just read, because I think she explains it. Yeah, if she doesn't, I'll explain it. All right. Carla, Tukula, and Luvemba, whose essential significances are mapped in symmetry with 4 moments of the sun's station across time in each stage. The human being takes a different shape, completing a life cycle by the end of the 4th stage. Yeah. So Musoni, Kala to Kala, Luvemba are life stages. When diagrammed, the Dikenga Congo is a spherical image. Yeah. Divided evenly into 4 quadrants by vertically and horizontal axes, distinguished by symbolic colors. Each quadrant represents one of life's 4 stages. Unborn, lower right, yeah, which is yellow. So the Musoni is the unborn. Childhood, the upper right, which is in black, which is adulthood. Yes. And sorry, childhood, which is the upper right, which is black. Adulthood, which is red, the Tukala, and ancestorhood, which is the lower left, which is the white. Okay. It follows then that in addition to healing practices, birth, marriage, and death, the customary rites of passage are all dignified by ceremonial behavior within Kumana families. Yeah, pursuing the counterclockwise path of the rising and setting sun. Bear that in mind. So remember, Asar, Heru, yeah, are represented as movements of the sun. The sun is also depicting or symbolic of stages of human life in the Kikongo or the Bakongo tradition as well. During Kumana ceremonies, devotees dance this perceived spherical circumference while twisting and turning their bodies in spiraling patterns as they make their way around the circle. They travel through the stages of life. Let me show you what that looks like in reality, right? I'm gonna show you what that looks like in reality. Yeah, this is a stage reproduction, yeah, by the Jamaican folk singers. Okay, so what you see here are 2 drummers in the center, yeah, one on either side, representing either stage of life, yeah, which is the Kala and the Luvemba. All right, childhood and eldership. Yeah. Now, normally, can everybody hear me? Right. Let's make sure there's sound plays. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. Yeah. Normally, what would take place? What would happen is that on either side, at the top there, you would have somebody playing the ShakaRa, and opposite them, yeah, you would have somebody playing either a greater or a metal instrument. All right. So you see the Musoni and the Takula represented there as well. And as you can see, let me just look a piece. Yeah, they're dancing counterclockwise. Yes, around the drummers. So this is the living representation of what you just seen in the diagram a while ago. Yeah, this is Kumina. This is in Jamaica, by the way. All right, so that's so now you can see that. Now remember, yeah, when I spoke earlier about the Dogon, yeah, and about the mask with the symbol for Amma on the head and the dance that is done spiraling around the axis with the arms outstretched. Can you see it right, Yasso? Yeah, you can see it right, Yasso? Yeah. You can see it right, Yasso, yeah? Counterclockwise, okay? All right, so I think I've made the point. We're going to get back to the presentation so we can wrap up the thing. I'm going to skip some slides, yeah? But there's 2 things in that, all right? The first thing is that the Bakongo people had joined with other Africans in Jamaica, and they were developing their own nationhood based upon alignment with their ancestors. All spiritual traditions, all religions deify or venerate ancestors. Yeah, and cultural and historical continuity is maintained through the remembrance of telling the stories and the veneration of those ancestral lineages. This is just a cosmogram that I grew up with in the Alchemical and Revivalist movement that gives expression to the life cycle. because Brother Leader Bandaka is very, very passionate about the life cycle, yeah, African life from the womb to the tomb and beyond. And you see it manifested with the natural forces and so on and so forth, and the stages of human development. Okay, we're not going to dwell on that. All right. So finally, kings and queens, why do I choose African spirituality? Let's keep that video. Marcus Messiah Garvey, the most eminent prophet, says, nature first made us what we are. And then out of our own creative genius, we make ourselves what we want to be. Mind creates. And as much as we desire in nature, we can have through the creation of our minds. Being at present, scientifically, the weaker race, you shall treat others only as they treat you. But in your homes and everywhere possible, you must teach the higher development of science to your children, and be sure to develop a race of scientists par excellence. For in science and religion lie our only hope to withstand the evil designs of modern materialism. Why has he said in science and religion? Ask me in the Q&A, I'll come back to it. So I choose African spirituality because it is apparent to me that African spirituality, KIMOYO, has the wherewithal to reconnect us to our natural and cosmic source, culturally and cosmologically. I choose KIMOYO, African spirituality, because it has the wherewithal to assist us in reconstructing our culture and the philosophical framework to inform independent nation building efforts, principally because KIMOYO, African spirituality, connects us to our own ancestors. I choose KIMOYO, African spirituality, because, where am I? I done reconstruct, reconnect, yeah? Has the ability to reconnect us with our traditional culture. Wait a second, I've messed this up. What's going on here? Reconstruct, reconnect, reconstruct. Yep. Restore. KIMOYO, African spirituality, has the correct way of life that will guide us in rebuilding institutions that serve our own people. And KIMOYO, African spirituality, is a revolutionary endeavor. I'm going to conclude the presentation right there. I've skipped a lot. I've jumped for a bit, but now I'm going to open up for Q&A for those who wish to engage it. Give thanks for listening, family. I do appreciate it. Yeah, let's share out the link content when you're ready. And we can talk to the masses them. Content seems to have disappeared. Oh, he's there. You there, content?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Yes, family. Yeah, big presentation. For respect for that, blood. Respect for that. Yeah, it's a shame. Cause I'm on the road now. Cause I have a computer lined up to play Burning Spear, African Teacher. You get me? I was gonna run for a little piece. You get me? But yeah, man's on the road still, sir. Yeah. It was big same way though. Man's gonna have to definitely gonna have to rewatch that a few hundred times still and break it down into sections. You get me? Because there's a lot to take in still. It's a lot to take in, but the old time man's doing it though, fam. I'm like, yo, trust me, fam. I don't know what I'm going still, car. Very informative. Bare things that man never heard before. Insightful, you get me? It's like, and it's like, it's a blessing that man came down to Speaker's Corner still, car. It's the same dynamic in Speaker's Corner over and over. You get me? Man's kind of losing interest personally. You get me? But is where it is still. But yeah, man on the air, so for some more varied opinions and information and knowledge. You get me, sir? I'm glad you called me the thing still. But alright, cool. Man's gonna share the link.
Do you want to share it? Oh, I can't share it.
Yeah.
No, but I'm not a mod, so you gotta share it yourself.
Yep. If it be a mod to share it, can I make man a mod on air? No. Give me 1 sec. Alright, cool. Let me. Let me see if I can do it from my phone, man. The man trying to work with a phone is a mad thing still.
Yeah.
Yeah. Invite. Copy the link. Sure, sit there.
We got my brother Minds in the building.
Who's Scat's in the building, yeah?
Scattered Minds is in the chat still. Good to see you, bro. Hoping that
Peace,
you're well.
Brother.
There's a few questions in the chat, yeah, so I'm gonna answer that then whilst you're all
right.
Yeah, that cool.
I'm pasting the link. Yeah, man. Yeah. Go through, fam.
All right, so 1 second. So let me see. ShakaRa speaks. One of the important aspects of religion is the production of ethical systems. What's the moral teachings of African spirituality? So I don't know when you tuned in, but I was giving some examples of some earlier, and there are many. So that, like, for example, that story that I just told about Shango and Obatala, that's a moral and ethical teaching. The most ancient, or the oldest book known to us in this day and age is the maxims or the teachings of Ptah-hotep, which is entirely about morals and ethics. And I can give some examples of a few, because some of them are, I have the book somewhere, but I don't have it on me right where I am at the moment. But you know, the Medjugorje, the ancient teachings of ancient Kemet, the Oduifa of the Yoruba, the Ifa, are replete with moral and ethical teachings. Now, having said that, oftentimes you will find knowledge and ethical teachings that are preserved in sayings. Yeah. So in many African cultures, when you see, because there's a lot of proverbs, and so the moral and ethical teachings are preserved in those proverbs. Yeah, but let me give you some science on like Ptah-hotep. So again, the oldest book known to human civilization as it stands right now is the teachings of Ptah-hotep. Yeah, and Ptah-hotep was a priest of Amen, and he was an educator. And so some of these teachings would explain, you know, what you're referring to. Yeah. 1 second. Give me a sec. All right. Declarations of no, I'm in the wrong place. All on this. Sorry, family. I'm all over the place. Wise instruction. There we go. So I'm reading from the Hosea, which is a compilation of ancient Kemetu wisdom as compiled by Maulana Karenga. And this is like the first book to kind of make ancient Kemet road, in the sense of the fact that to give everyday people, make the teachings of ancient Kemet in the Medjugorje accessible to the everyday person. Yeah. But Ptah-hotep, be not arrogant because of your knowledge. Take counsel with the ignorant as well as the wise. For the limits of knowledge in any field have never been set, and no one has ever reached them. Wisdom is rarer than emeralds, and yet it is found among the women who gather at the grindstone. Yeah, the depiction of women who gather at the grindstones means that it's an everyday activity. Yeah, women gather to grind food. Wisdom is found among them. Yeah, if you are a leader and command many, strive for excellence in all you do, so that no fault can be found in your character. For Maat, the way of truth, justice, and righteousness is great. Its value is lasting. So you know, you get the vibe. One of the most popular examples of ethics and morals, yeah, is the narratives, yeah, associated with Kun Anup, yeah, who in popular European Egyptology they call him the eloquent peasant, yeah, who was being mistreated by an official in Kemet and took his case to the court. And the story is that the pharaoh, who I'm forgetting which pharaoh, apologies, was so impressed that he just wanted to hear the eloquence of Kun Anup even more, and so that the eloquence of Kun Anup was documented and became law, yeah, or was instituted into the legal system in ancient Kemet. And you know, that became used in the priestly order, so it became sacred and so on and so forth. So those are some examples. I hope that answers that question. There's bare questions, you know. Some of you I have to come. Have you shared the link yet? All right. So yeah, contact and share the link. So come live. Let me know if I'm not looking at the thing right now. So let me know if anybody wants to come live and ask a question. I'm not gonna get all these questions, you know, as they're written. ShakaRa, I have a question. Is KIMOYO one system, or is it a synthesis of all African systems into a hybrid that you have brought forward? I reject the use of the word hybrid, but I embrace the use of the word synthesis. I did say that at the very beginning, that we're dealing with a cultural synthesis. So the idea is that is not just ShakaRa's opinion, but I've brought you scholars, I've brought you Sheikh Anta Diop, I've brought you Kim Bwadende, Kikiabo Seki Fukiao, I've brought you Baba Fia Faila Benga, I've brought you Mambo Amamazama, I've brought you Malefaketi Asante, and others who are giving credence to this idea of cultural unity. Yeah. And so the idea is that there is cultural unity, and that cultural unity has been fragmented. And so restoring that cultural unity is about synthesizing the parts into a whole. And that synthesis doesn't necessarily mean uniformity in the sense of the fact that all of the different traditions must now express themselves in exactly the same way. Yeah. The idea is more that that the variety, there's the synthesis in the variety does not detract from the cultural unity, if that makes sense, and the cultural unity does not detract from the variety, the synthesis in the whole. You know what I mean? So neither of those things, there's no dichotomy there. Yeah. So I hope I've answered that question. Let me go down. Let me see. Scatterman's is getting questioned. ShakaRa speaks. Is it not a waste of time to propagate African spirituality today? We live in a different world, and most Africans follow Abrahamic faith. No, in fact, the fact of most Africans following the Abrahamic faith is actually the reason to propagate African spirituality. But yeah, I think I've explained it. I've explained it at the end there. Yeah. All right. Let me get to a slide that I didn't get to. All right, and maybe this will give expression to what it is that you've just said. Okay. Right. This. Oh, I took it out of the presentation. Did I take it out? How can I take it out? Venn diagram, the Dekenga. Right. What I was going to explain is the fact that when you're dealing with African spirituality and its relationship to ancestors, the emphasis on ancestors is what led the people them in the Congo to organize nations around these ancestors: Moyenge, Manuka Mvula, Machunde, Kong, you know what I'm saying, and these kinds of things. Yeah, and so the identification with their ancestors formulated their social organization in a particular kind of way, and therefore maintained their cultural continuity. So what I'm saying is that when you delve into African spirituality, it is not just about going 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, and picking up whatever our ancestors had and just practicing the same thing. It's about the fact that all our traditions are dynamic, they're vital, so they evolve, and then we find applications for them today. But the primary application is within the cosmology, the ontology, and the axiology. The ontology in terms of how we see ourselves. Yeah, if religion is the deification of a people's culture, then through African spirituality is how we have deified or projected the best of ourselves. Yes, ontology. Cosmology, through African spirituality, is how we have detailed our relationship to the cosmos and the universe. And because African spirituality is inherently nature-based, you will be surprised at the extent to which African spiritual concepts of cosmology, creation stories, and so on and so forth actually mirror, not exactly, but in many ways, modern day scientific concepts of how creation came into being, or how the universe came into being, and even evolution. Yeah. And in my consciousness, I'm suggesting that that is just a byproduct of African spirituality being nature-based, being based upon observations of the universe. And then finally, the primary principles and values. Yeah. So that what we can clearly see related to this question now. Notice that I haven't mentioned Abrahamic religions for the whole presentation. Yeah. But in relation to this question, what Abrahamic religions, the impact that they have had on African people is the veneration of a specific line of ancestors coming from Abraham. Yeah. And adherence to the values, the axiology of that ancestral lineage has come with the command that in order to adhere to it, we must also reject our own ancestral lineage, the axiology, the cosmology, and the ontology associated with our ancestral lineage, because that axiology and ontology and cosmology has been given words like pagan, heathen, kuffar, shirk, idolatry, paganism. I said paganism already, yeah. Animism, savagery, barbarity, and these kinds of things. And so the idea is that a restoration of dignity and functionality to the ontology, the cosmology, and the axiology of African people will help to generate a self-determining method of reproduction among African people and help to break the chains of mental slavery that have us venerating other ancestral lines to the degradation, the detriment, and the condemnation of our own. And I hope that answers the question. I believe you got somebody on the panel.
Oh,
yes.
All right.
Richard ShakaRa.
Blessings. Who that attack?
Marcus Culture.
Marcus Culture.
Yeah, man.
Blessings, blessings. Yo, content.
Blessings.
Take me off the big screen, please. Cause I want to see the people when they attack. Cyrus, I'm gonna ask you a question. Yeah, I'm gonna ask you a question. Stay tuned.
Yeah, can you see me?
No, not yet. I'm waiting for. I know I'm good looking content, but I'm not that good looking it. So take me off of the big screen. I want to see the band.
Since I just said that, I'm gonna reveal myself now still. So maybe block off the camera thing, but yeah.
Blessings, blessings.
Yeah, blessings. So, you know, when I rise you up for the presentation, great presentation, very well needed in this time as well. Because, you know, part of our problem is that the script that we are following is a script that enslaves our minds. And everybody is calling it Holy Script, the Holy Bible and Holy Quran and whatever they come as, you know? And your revelation right now is very much needed. And I hope people see that in that light and actually, you know, join you in doing the research, because I think there's a lot more for us to research into, but I'm saying this is a great, great start. And I think, you know, people who have actually grown up in those cultures that you actually referred to from the continent needs to actually see that their responsibility is to come out and do what you're doing. And it's a long time overdue that most of the people on the continent who actually have grown up in those culture, you know, and actually move away from it to go and worship the Abrahamic religions and all of those kind of things need to have been doing what you're doing now, you know. And
thanks.
Yeah, man. So me not gonna go stretch it too long because there's enough people. But I want to just say that, you know, a lot of what you've done now is things that I see that we all been thinking of, and a lot of people get beat down, whether by their own family or friends, to say, "Oh, sure, no bother with that." There's a lot of the questions being asked now is it relevant? But of course, it's relevant because, you know, we can see that African spirituality is something which is scientific based and not idealistically based, like the Abrahamic religion that was imposed on us just to brainwash us.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
gonna leave it there. All right. No
give
respect, brother.
Give thanks.
All right.
M.A. Brown.
Imagine I know that guy, you know, bro.
Yeah, you know, I recognize him myself too. I recognize him myself too. I can't lie. I recognize him myself.
ShakaRa, that's my son talking to you. Though. Remember, I tell you.
No, I recognize him. I didn't recognize it was you. Shame. you know what threw me off? It was the beard. You know, I didn't see your face completely. I did the beard because that's why I didn't see you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Interesting.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. One love, man. And you know, say we are one family. You know that, ShakaRa.
Of course.
One family, man. For real. One day we'll get together, man.
Yes, sir.
No reason.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Yes, Emmy. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right. Because you say hello to my dad quickly.
Hi, Dad.
Hey, how you doing, Kasu?
All
right. We're there.
All right. Yeah, ShakaRa. So you remember Dalian's presentation last month, or was it a month before? He spoke about the five commonalities in African spiritual systems.
Yeah.
Somebody did ask him about were they present, or he revealed that they might be present in some of the Abrahamic faiths. What was your position on that? Because you didn't actually get to speak on that too much in that actual presentation.
So, all right. So I did touch on those five principles, yeah. But remember now, we're not just dealing with the existence of them philosophically. We're dealing with the existence in a particular kind of way. So when I say African spirituality, we're particularizing this expression among African people, yeah, because we're saying that these things manifest in unique ways among African people that unite African people specifically. So it's possible that there are and it is true that there are similar concepts of the creator that exist in other traditions, if that makes sense. Yes, let's say in Eastern philosophy, quote unquote, right, for want of a better terminology. Yeah, but those systems may not be as interrelated as the African in terms of that literally the evidence of whether if we look at ancient Kemet and the Nile Valley as a magnet that drew African people to it, you know what I'm saying, and then from which we dispersed. So even down to the linguistics, yeah, there's relationship between the Medjugorje language and many African languages on the continent, yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so therefore the ancestors are related, and the methods or the modalities of ritual are related. I don't know of another tradition, for example, whereby libation is so ubiquitous as it is, you know what I'm saying, in Africa, although I know of other traditions that venerate ancestors. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that all traditions venerate ancestors to one degree or another, yeah? Yeah. So, but even if there were more, what's the word? Substantive similarities between African spirituality and other spiritual traditions, there is a need, politically speaking, to centralize and particularize the African because of the particular demonization that African spirituality has received. You know, so as I said at the beginning, I'm not sure if you were here at the beginning, but the designation is cultural, it's historical, and it is also political in that regard.
Second question, just to right off the back of that, is it easier? And I'm not saying that whether it being easier is a way to decide whether to do one or the other, but is it easier or harder to convince people of the black people of the Abrahamic faiths that the retentions that they have are African spiritualists, rather than saying that that within the Abrahamic faiths is carried some of those similarities? I don't know if that question makes sense, but
it does.
Yeah.
The form might be easier, but it would be untrue. So I think it's more true to say that there are influences of African spirituality, principally Kemet, within Abrahamic religions. Yeah, that's true. To say that that these religions are in fact at their fundamental basis African would be untrue, because if religion is the deification of a people's culture, we have to assess whose culture is this religion expressed in. Yeah. And so similarities notwithstanding, if the religion is expressed in a particular culture, then that religion is of that people's culture. And I'm not concerned at all, yeah, with the extent to which African spirituality matches up or fits neatly into boxes that are defined by Abrahamic religions or Eastern religions. Yeah. I am into African spirituality, has validity on its own merit, and should be judged and assessed upon its own standards. Yeah, I'm not. So there are African spiritualists who are preoccupied with demonstrating the similarities between Abrahamic religions, or the linkages between Abrahamic religions, or Eastern religions and African spirituality. I'm not necessarily, let us say, hostile to that trajectory. I'm just not passionate about it either. You know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. Yeah. If you are done for now, family, feel free to come through. Yeah, click the link. Post the link again. I beg you. Content, so we can get more people through if they want to come through. That is. If you don't, it's fine as well. I want to answer this question in the that I got in the chat. Yeah. Sorry, Uncle. I'm gonna come back to you in a sec.
All right. Focus on doing that. I just wanted to say that I agree with you there, ShakaRa, because you see, what you've actually uncovered tonight actually shows us that African religion or African spirituality was head and shoulders above the Abrahamic religion. It's only that they've actually enforced that upon us to believe that it wasn't.
Yeah.
And now that we can see for ourselves that African religion or spirituality is scientific based and not idealistic based, because idealistic thought basically keep you trapped in the past. But the scientific ideas is one which is kind of natural and dynamic. It will actually carry you wherever you want to go, rather than you actually just having to guess and base yourself on wishes and hopes and dreams, rather than doing it for yourself. But you see, we have to realize that what the colonization process is that it actually brainwashes you into a belief, right, which is taking you nowhere while they're studying science. You see, and so therefore behind the scene they're actually studying African science.
Most definitely.
But having us believing. Yeah. So I'm gonna leave it there, my brother, and keep on the great work, Give
thanks, Uncle. Give thanks. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
One love. Right.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. So, all right. Cyrus I asks ShakaRa, historically, the most successful religious movements have adopted the lingua franca as a mode of unifying, homogenizing the message. Is this a part of your ambition? Yes and no. I don't believe that it's necessary for the Kikuyu to speak Yoruba in order to access African spirituality. Although I do believe my studies of the work of people like Baba Kwesi Pra suggest to me that going forward, the number, quote unquote, of African languages that we have may be significantly reduced based upon an understanding of the linkages, the organic historical linkages between these languages. Yeah, the Tower of Babel depiction of Africa and African culture, whereby you got these thousands of languages that nobody can communicate with each other, is a fallacy, and a European colonial fallacy. However, the Pan-African ideal suggests that we will need a lingua franca. And so through that social organization, I believe that languages will develop or be chosen organically among people that will assist us in communicating. And it may be the case that that across in a macro sense, we have a quote unquote common language, but our smaller group languages will be preserved in their ritual form or something like that. There's very many ways that this can, that can happen. So in short, I'm not against the lingua franca, especially for political purposes, but I think we should be careful, scientific and methodological, and true to Pan-African cultural development in terms of how we develop common languages in a spiritual sense. In that regard, we have to be conscious of the trajectory, the development of and the evolution of African languages over time, and in forming new languages or developing our languages, we have to be conscious of it being a unifying effort rather than a fragmenting effort or a domination of certain sensibilities over other sensibilities for less than virtuous reasons. And I hope that answers that question. Yeah, I'm gonna go through the chat. The link is in the link is in the description. Sorry, the link is in the chat, Kings and Queens. So feel free to come through. Does this African spirituality model reflect reality? That's a big question. I think I would have explained that in the whole presentation itself. So I don't know how to answer that. If you could be more specific, whoever asked that question. Isn't African spirituality not in actual? Isn't African spirituality not in actual? I don't know what that means. So please ask that again. All spiritual beliefs and spiritual understandings are subjective, which is fine. It's just when. Oh, sorry, I thought that was a question. Sorry. But I agree. All spiritual perspectives are subjective. Right. I hope I'm not missing any questions. Okay. What's it called? Characteristically, there's an argument going on in the chat. Let me scroll back and see if I missed anything. Are there sources dating back which prove this is inspired by the divine? So the divine in African spirituality is not the same as the divine in Abrahamic traditions. Nature itself is divine. So we interact with the divine every day, and we are expressions of the divine. And so what we document is our understanding of divine principles. It would be considered arrogant to think that we have a perfected understanding of the divine that was given to us, in an instant or over any period of time, if that makes sense. Yeah. So no. Like I don't know what that kind of proof would look like. But again, we are not. That question sounds like it comes from a specific kind of Abrahamic perspective, and so it doesn't align with African spirituality. Is the point I'm trying to make. We don't have to have. I don't think any religion has proof that it came from the divine, except for the divine in nature. You know what I'm saying? That's how I say. You know what I mean? I hope that makes sense. Is this exclusive to Africa and African people? I think I've answered that already in relation to the political designation of African. Suffice to say that all people are entitled to develop their own spiritual systems, especially as it relates to nature. Let me see. Captain Bloodfire, apologies. I am just seeing your message, your comments. I'm not sure who or what point you were saying that you were lost, but if you want to clarify, feel free to. MA Brown, you're gone. What happened to you? You drop off.
Gone to bed.
Yeah, family, the link is in the chat. So if anybody wants to come through, ask a question, make a comment, Cosman, challenge me. Yeah, I'm open to all of that. I'm not seeing too many questions in here, so maybe my explanation was that good, or maybe people are just afraid to ask questions.
Yes, it's very good, my brother. Very good.
Give thanks, Uncle. I appreciate it. But yeah, I do want to say though that the presentation itself is a work in progress, yeah. And so I'm going to be cutting it up, and so I'm able to delve into different elements a bit more in depthly. And then the next presentation that I'm going to do out of this is called Kem Shekem, yeah, African spirituality and nation building, yeah. And so Kem is black in ancient Kemet, and Shekem is power. And so I am initiated as a Sema Kemet or Semitawi Seba Kemet yoga instructor, and my teacher, big brother Ankh Aku, coined this phrase Kem Shekem, because he said he's trying to conceptualize how our ancients would conceive of black power, and so he put together this idea of Kem Shekem, yeah. But with that, I really want to go into what I was touching on at the end there, which is nation building, yeah, nation building and African spirituality. I was trying to find this quote because I missed from something that I didn't read. I'm trying to find it, and I'm gonna try and find, because it deals with the nation building point in relation to our ancestors in the Congo. Interesting. Yeah. Here we go. All right. So I'm reading from content. If you want to share my screen again, you can. Right. So I'm reading from the paper that I was reading from before. Hold on the Kumina nation building concepts. Yeah. So let me find that page again. Okay. Right. And it says, an ironic juxtaposition exists between the British Empire's politics of sovereignty and that of the Kumina nation. Bearing in mind now, this is following the enslavement process during which Jamaica is a colonized nation of formerly enslaved Africans. Yeah. While the ever-expanding Victorian Empire sought to absorb African traditions into its colonial polities under various arrangements in the late 18th century, Central Africans in Jamaica and other exiles in the Caribbean and the Americas did not abandon their own nation politics. They engaged in nation-building practices that held currency for them as enslaved colonial subjects, discovering their potential to self-govern even while toiling under British imperial governance. These nation practices included holding native judiciary courts, hosting coronation pageants, and assuming royal titles. Certainly, Queen Victoria died without ever knowing the names and power of the late 19th century Kumina queens. These queens, their names now lost, were predecessors of figures like Queenie Espute, who's a very well-known queen of the Kumina nation in Jamaica, who reigned in the mid-19th century over Central African Jamaican linguistically related nations of Moyenge, Machunde, Congo, Modongo, and Mumbaka. In 1946, like far too, sorry, let me run down a little bit. Whether conceived as the Atlantic Ocean or other bodies of water, Kalunga in Kumina culture signifies the point of entry to Mpemba, which is the unseen world, the lower world of the invisible powers, ancestors, and deities, and immediately glosses the concepts of immensity and immeasurability. Taking her first breath, just months before Queen Victoria's last, Queenie Espute defies death time and time again, returning to Kumina ceremonies in St. Thomas to dance life's circular path with her descendants. Yeah. So the whole point is that the Kumina was not just a religion or a ritual; it was a nation-building social organization. Yeah, through which the people that were maintaining themselves under the system of colonization. I hope that makes sense. You can stop sharing my screen now, content. Yeah, if you so wish. Yes, family. You know what I mean. So I hope
yes.
I hope one of the ones are getting something from that. And feel free to share your perspective and your opinions by clicking the link in the chat.
Yeah.
We like that. You know what I mean? Go ahead, Uncle. So you want to say something?
Yeah, that was a brilliant reference you draw there. You know, in terms of the continuation of nationhood even during slavery times.
Yes, sir.
And we have to realize that that the Africans in the Caribbean and on the continent, South America, has actually lead independent nations for hundreds of years during slavery, including places like St. Vincent and places in
the Garifuna.
Yes.
Yeah. No.
And Brazil as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course you know that Haiti actually won their independence perhaps about the same time as the United States of America. And yes, so we need to have that, and that is the essence of self-determination. And we have to see the religious practices that comes from Africa as our self-determination, and not to be thinking about going to heaven, which our enslavers is promising us.
Yes,
so that's the big context of what you're presenting here tonight, my brother. I hope all the people them see it in that light and not seeing it as something to just treat as entertainment.
Yes, sir. And I do want to say, I know our King of Code I do, but not here right now. But give thanks for that still. Oh, hold on. Content. I'm not sure if MA is backstage now or if that was from before, but there's a message here saying that MA is backstage. Yeah. My PayPal, boy. I'm gonna sort that out still. I'm not organizing that kind of way. ShakaRa, do you think it would be better to build a new system due to up-to-date scientific methods while still studying the former ways? That's the whole point. One of the things that I didn't say is that African spirituality is a creative process. It's not stagnant. It's never been stagnant. And that kind. So we don't have to creating new, yes, but I would say more evolving what we already have. And I say that because it would be fine to say create new if we properly understood what we already have. Yeah. But we have to remember that we've been severed from a knowledge of what we had. So I believe that a part of the process is actually learning what we had and how we preserved what we had where we went. So I am not one of those Africans who believes that one has to go to the continent in order to experience African spirituality. Because I gave you the example of Kumina. There is Vudan in Haiti. There is Condomble and Lukumi and other African spiritual retentions all over the Americas. Yeah, that are living manifestations of our Africanness and our culture. That if we learn about them, we are connecting to our spirituality. And in some ways, because of the ways in which we had to preserve our spiritual systems in the Americas, there are certain things that we may have that our brothers and sisters on the continent may not have, and vice versa. Yeah, because of the fact that we had to go up in hill and gully and mountain, yeah, and hide. Yeah, whereas during the colonial period, some of our spiritual systems and social organization was co-opted by the colonizer. So there's some cross-fertilization that we have to do in order to purge ourselves of the colonial concepts. Content. Emmy Brown's backstage right now still. Yeah, he's there. Right? Yeah, man. Give thanks. Yeah.
Yes.
So I hope that answers that question. I'm gonna say, how long we been on for? I'm gonna say let's give it another 15 minutes here, to see if anybody wants to come on. Else wants to come on and ask a question or make a comment, and then we'll see. Yes, sir.
You want me to disappear now and give some space?
No, you can if you want to, but you're not taking up any space. So yeah, people can come on.
Oh man, no man, he likes the camera, man. He likes the camera. Here you go. I was gonna say, so Marcus culture has always been big on economics, African economics. And in relation to this presentation, you obviously know that the conversations across the Pan-African community have always involved a lot of modern economic concepts and some older. But are there any concrete economic principles that can be drawn directly from African spiritual practices that we can bring forward?
Most definitely. So in the presentation, I mentioned Ubuntu, which is the concept of peoplehood in among the quote unquote Bantu peoples. A related concept to Ubuntu is Ujamaa. Ujamaa, literally in Kiswahili, means familyhood. But Ujamaa, meaning familyhood, is also about home economics. And a great African by the name of Julius Nyerere developed Ujamaa into an economic system on the national scale during the 1960s into the 70s and 80s. Now, what he did was not perfect. So we're not giving anybody the impression that what he was developing was perfect, but which economic system is perfect? The whole point is that he was developing an economic system that was designed around peoplehood and the demands of the people that he was organizing around. And so because of that, because the economic system is derived from the people's culture itself, it has more functional value in that regard. And so these are concepts that need to be developed. The issue is that my dad has a saying where he says that African intellect must serve African, I don't know, he didn't say endeavors, but let's say endeavors. African intellect must serve African endeavors. And what's happening is that our intellect at the moment, for the most part, is being used to square the circle in relation to how we can best institute Westminster democracy and free market capitalism in African nations. And it don't work. We're not investing the intellectual power into what can we learn from our indigenous economic and political systems, because we had them, that can inform how we can develop economic and political systems today. But there is more than enough material to go on. I suggest a book called Mbongi, an Indigenous African Political Institution by Kimbwadende Kiabunseki Fukiao, because he's doing just that. In fact, read everything by Kimbwadende Kiabunseki Fukiao, because he's doing that work of answering a lot of these questions from that specific book. And why I'm suggesting him as well, because there are other people that are doing the work, but he's very explicitly using Bakongo culture to do it. And having said that, shout out to Kasu. I relied heavily on Bakongo culture today in this presentation, so we give thanks to the Bakongo asset.
Yeah, I could hear that, I hear that. But Brother ShakaRa,
Sir.
I think, from a scientific perspective, we can look at and study any knowledge system which is based on numeracy, market analysis in terms of marketing.
Yes, sir.
In terms of operation management and all of those things. But we have our own foundation as African people in our own culture.
Yes, sir.
We have that to stand on.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of developing techniques, and studying techniques developed anywhere else in the world, and we have to recognize that there has been a lot of techniques being developed while we are actually worshiping other people. And so we can go and become active now in researching and developing those same techniques in our own culture.
I agree. I agree. As Baba Amos Wilson will put it, we need to be about the Africanization of information.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we don't what we have a tendency to do is swallow their information along with the culture that we get it from. And that's not self-empowering. At the same time, Marcus Mosiah Garvey says, "Hear all, but attend only to that which concerns you." So we can learn from everybody, and we don't mind that. But when we institute things in our own, for our own purposes, it has to be based upon our own culture. So if it doesn't harmonize with our culture, then we have to either throw it away, or if it's absolutely needed, then we have to formulate it in ways that it can harmonize with our own culture. But our culture should not be a casualty of us taking on knowledge systems, which is what has been the case up until now.
Yes, my brother. And then again, we will have, institutions that have people who actually knows their area, know their workings, because they have studied it. And so we can rely upon those people to deliver, whether it's in marketing, or if it's in finances, or if it's in technology, or whatever it is that they're focusing on, and recognize that because they are putting in more work, they'll probably be more competent in dealing with that, rather than somebody else who never open a book in relation to finance or in relation to marketing. Actually,
I would say that the essence of what you're saying relates very explicitly to science. Europeans, as a result of robbing and raping and pillaging, have also been in a position to advance a lot of scientific discovery in the last 500 years. That's a reality. So there's a lot that we have to learn that we have not independently been contributing to, although we have, even within, because if we were to study the number of things that we invented in the post-slavery era, it's mad, yeah. That African ingenuity seemed to manifest itself and seemed to maintain itself. However, a lot of the cultural framing for that was not our own culture. And so definitely that scientifically, quantum physics and things in what I'm saying, on the subatomic level and kind of things, that we're gonna have to rely upon the research that has been done by other peoples and absorb that into our own culture. That's most definitely the case. So I totally agree. ShakaRa, I'm waiting for your African internet search engines with the melanin-backed algorithms. Indeed. Well, the melanin-backed algorithms are within us as African people. So once we begin to tap into them more, then you'll see them manifest. I'm giving a facetious answer to a facetious statement.
Yes, but ShakaRa, you see, a lot of people is looking for miracles, and they're not realizing that the reality is that they've got what it takes, because lots of people is asking for leadership, that to do the right thing, and they're not actually preparing themselves to participate in it.
Yes, sir.
And the fact is that we're never ever going to get good leaders unless us, the masses, are studying to become good leaders.
So,
and what's like unplugged.
Somebody's mic is
It's probably cord is pulled out.
Cousin.
Yeah. I'm gonna hear you.
Is that better?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm an engineer as well, ShakaRa.
Yeah. It's original sound, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He's a video man as well, just like MA as well as yourself.
Okay. Get that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so the reality is that. Sorry, MA, you were saying something.
No, it was me. Sorry, go on. Go on.
All right. Yeah, so the thing is that we have to be the leaders that we want to see. We have to be the scientists that we want to see. We have to be the engineers that we want to see. Yeah, but we have to, the only way we're going to get to that is when we come out of this belief systems, which is imposed on us, where we become wishful thinkers, hopeless hopers. Yeah. So we have to get out of that. And this is why it's so good and important that we embrace African spirituality. And when I say spirituality, I want to say African spiritual science. Because you see, when you say spirituality, you don't fully explain to somebody who doesn't know. So they might come and just catch on the corner, thinking that it's another form of religion. Right? But when we say African science, or spiritual science, then they're expected to become scientists as well. It's not that to come and believe in something that was created for them 1,000 years or 2,000 years ago. No, you have to start building what you know into what you want it to be.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One of the things that I'm going to, as well as the Shem one, I'm going to try and do another presentation on African spiritual or Kimoyo, because I'm introducing that concept. For those who weren't here when I dropped it, Kimoyo is a word in the Bantu language which relates to life and vitality, or can be translated as dynamo vitalism. Moyo is a word that means life or spirit or heart or any number of things, yeah, related to life, yeah. And ki is of, yeah. And so we're saying that African spirituality is of life, of spirit, and these kinds of things, yeah, of the cultivation of the human self, yeah, consciousness, all right. And so we want to do one. In fact, share my screen again, please, content, if you can. I'm going to do one on African spirituality or Kimoyo and the science of the mind, yeah. Kimoyo and the science of the mind. I'm gonna read something that I left out of the presentation earlier, but it's from the great and illustrious Baba Wade Nobles, who's a psychologist. Yeah. Now, this is maybe a little bit confusing. The book here is not where this quote is taken from. The book actually deals with the subject, but I'll put it there as a reference for people that want to go and do more research. Seeking the Saku is the and Saku is a word in Mejuneta for spirit, but also consciousness. Yeah. Foundational writings for an African psychology by Wade Nobles. Yeah. But the actual quote is taken from his essay Saku Jer, Implications for the Further Development of Pan-African Black Psychology. Yeah. So he says the question of a Pan-African Black psychology must ultimately turn to the task of our being able to illuminate the spirit of Muntu. So he's got it separately here because Untu also relates to the word for spirit. Yeah. So Muntu, person, Bantu, yeah, is really Mu Untu and Ba Untu. Yeah. Person and people, but representations or manifestations of spirit or vital force. Yeah. To the people of the world, people worldwide. In furthering the challenge of Black psychology to rescue ancient African deep thoughts, I propose the adoption of Saku Jer as the process of understanding, examining, and explicating the meaning, nature, and functioning of being human for African people by conducting a deep, profound, and penetrating search, study, and mastery of the process of illuminating the human spirit or essence, as well as all human experience and phenomena. Yeah. Let me just move to the next slide. 1 second, bear with me. In order to fully understand complexity of Saku Jer, illumination of the spirit, so Jer is illumination, Saku is spirit, one must include a discussion of the African antecedent comprehension of what it means to be human or to be a person. To understand this point, one has to think deeply and profoundly about African meanings and understandings about being human, consistent with Diop's 1974. Diop's 1974 is actually the book that I referenced earlier, Civilization or Barbarism. Yeah, directive to examine the domains of history, language, and psyche. Saku Jer would require that one interrogate the language and logic of traditional African people in order to gain insight into the function of contemporary African peoples. Yeah, our ancestors were spread throughout the diaspora, absent of freedom, that is, in chains. However, they did not arrive absent of language, thought, and belief about who they were. Our ancestors came with a language and systems of belief, logic about what it means to be human, and whom and whose they were and why they existed. It is through a penetrating reinterpretation of the language and logic of our African ancestry that both continental and diasporan Africans will be able to rescue and remember our humanity, wholeness, and wellness. Yeah. So again, this is actual living things that are happening right now, whereby African cosmological, ontological, and axiological concepts are being reformed into psychological frameworks. Yeah. That are functional in today's reality. Yeah. And I'm suggesting that this is probably the preeminent function, yeah, of African spirituality as in this day and age, if that makes sense, in terms of being a practical tool, because of the fact that of the emphasis on the science of the mind and human development. And in the text that I referenced earlier from Naim Akbar, he engages in an appraisal of Eurocentric psychology, scientific and technological advancement, and says that the main deficiency within European scientific and technological advancement is that much of it has taken place with a diminished emphasis on mind cultivation and human cultivation. And so within African spirituality or KIMOYO or our culture, because of the emphasis on that, we don't have that dichotomy or that contradiction. And so if we restore the functionality of these principles, then we will be able to develop scientifically, technologically, and humanly simultaneously, is the point.
Agreed. Totally agreed, my brother. You know, in that respect, my brother, sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think we have to wean ourselves off the master-slave relationship of Abrahamic religion. And subconsciously we think that, you know, it's our salvation, and we've all been waiting for all this time, you know, for the day when we are saved. And perhaps even during the coronavirus crisis now, a lot of people is probably thinking, it's only like a few more days now before God come back for the world, and, you know, and all that kind of business. But the reality is that we have been torn down by those belief systems, because we can all see that the African spiritual science, which means a way of understanding things from all angles, whether it's from the physical or from the metaphysical or from the spatial cosmos, you know, dimensions. We were able to understand life fully and participate in life fully, and from that we were able to build great civilization, as you've referred to a lot of civilization in common, like the Kemetic civilization and, you know, all of the other civilizations within the continent. We call it civilization because they address it like that, so we, you know, use that word. Now, if we was to move away from that belief system of the Abrahamic religion to start understand that it is not a God, single God somewhere out in space that governs, you know, the reality of life, but nature, as you outlined, nature which manifests itself into all kind of features, all kind of features of life, all kind of different minerals, you know, and substance, you know, not just on this planet, but throughout the universe. It's nature that manifests, and nature that expands and contracts, and nature that gives us the wisdom, the intellect, and all of that kind of thing. So if we fail to understand those kind of things, then we're going to be in a state of what do you call it, vegetation. We become manipulable, right? And we become slaves to those people who are really studying, you know, spiritual science and not just believing what they're told. And so therefore, African spiritual science really is the empowering vehicle that we need to take on board right now. As you've come to deliver this lecture tonight and show us the way, we need to just, and as a matter of fact, I'm just saying that this road has been a long road. As you say, you was brought up in it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you're continuing, the journey, you know, and we all should just join in with this now. And all of the people from the continent, who knows what you're saying needs to come forward and become a force to reckon with. And let us put the Abrahamic religions to rest and done with colonialization. And a lot of people who believe in Jesus need to know that Jesus is really Cesare Borgia, really. You know, he's not. He is the son of Pope Alexander the Sixth, who was ordered to enslave us, him and Columbus and the crew. Right. So a lot of those beliefs that we are thinking that it's going to save us is really a trick that they've actually still got us in. Yes. And if we don't realize it, just go and do some research to realize that, you know, it's like 1475 that this person that we have as Jesus was born, not 2,000 years ago. You know, and that is really evidence. Many books being written about the brother. Well, we call him brother, but the man who we call Jesus. Yeah. And if we realize that, why would we go on tomorrow or the day after worshiping it as a savior? And we all know that coronavirus is here and we can't see the man turn up to come and stop it. You know what I mean? So if he can't stop coronavirus, then how is he going to save the world?
Definitely.
You know?
Definitely.
Yes, my brother. Thank you for the space.
Yes, King. What's it? Renegade Raf, my brother Iramon Shelley, yeah. I see you there talking greasy in the chat. Like, feel free to click the link, innit, and come through, innit. I don't know how none of the man them that's got smoke for man, yeah, never came through and challenged man once, innit, that. Yeah, so feel free to come through if you got questions, innit. Content ain't really asking no questions at all. So I don't know how long you've been listening, but you can ask me any questions you want. We're not gonna be on for much longer, I take it. So, you know what I'm saying? When you're ready, come true. I'm trying to find something related to what you were saying a minute ago, you know, Uncle. I'm trying to remember there's a papyrus. The oldest known document that depicts trigonometry, yeah, is called the Rhind Papyrus.
Okay.
And it's from Kemet, right? But its actual full title, well, basically before, so it's basically depicting, I believe it's high school mathematics here, and it's the instructions from a teacher to a student, and then the students give like solving certain problems. Yeah. Now, but the preamble to the actual mathematical problems is an interesting title, and I'm trying to find it because it relates to how African spirituality is given to scientific exploration. Yeah. Now, bearing in mind that in ancient Kemet, as I'm sure you know, that the priesthood, the temple was also the school, is the education system, and they're learning trigonometry in the school. I'm gonna actually, I should have just Google it to see if I can get it. But the Rhind Papyrus, its longer title is very revealing.
Yes. You know about Pashotep?
Pahotep.
Hotep, yeah.
You mean Ptahhotep?
Yeah, Ptahhotep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a man for that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
You know, but as you say, I mean, the temple was a university.
Yes, sir. I don't know. I'm trying to find the long description. I thought it was in one of these Robin Walker books, but Paris is a problem. Yeah, it's very interesting though. It's very interesting. I'm staying on for you right now, you know, Iram Monshele, yeah, because you sound like you got challenges for man, innit? Yeah. So yeah, if you don't come in the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna jump off still once I find this description of the Rhind Papyrus. Actually, maybe I can, you know what I mean? But Emma, did you have something to say?
Myself?
No, Emma, Mr. Maat.
Okay, Emma. Okay.
I'm come back through, innit?
See you.
What may I say no? What may I say?
Well, you know what you're hoping up now, right? Is something that really should become a university program throughout the African world to teach our culture and have this as its base, you know, the spiritual science of African nations, you know, and conduct research and produce curriculum to teach those knowledge to, you know, not just the youth, but everybody. And that to me is the best route to actually get people back on the right road, right path.
I totally agree. I'm seriously just trying to find this Ryan Papyrus reference. Again. Forgive me, family. And as well, this actually should have been in the presentation, so forgive me. I was
well, you know, you've done more than enough now, brother. You've done more than enough. But you know, one of the parallel to what you're doing now is that the people in the economics and the finances need to step up now to be able to finance, you know, the projects that needs to be developed, you know, from education to engineering and all of the other, you know, medicine and all that. You know, the finance, as we know, is the key to keep people moving. It's like the oil, you know.
Yeah, you know. Well, I'm gonna be doing some work with some brothers because I work the same person that initiated me as a committed yoga instructor.
Yeah,
is also a marketing consultant, and so he deals with African-centered marketing.
Yes.
And so, you know, when if it wasn't for all of this, he would have been over here this month, and we'd have been having some events around, you know, around that whole concept. But him, a brother by the name of Paul Ifayomi Grant, you know, and a couple others, I am doing some works with, you know what I mean, in terms of developing, you know, modern day kind of African-centered economic models, so to speak.
Yes.
So yeah, you know.
Yeah, it's essential that we do that, you know, and of course, I mean, you know, I am from the background of the AAPRP, you probably know.
Yes, sir.
And you know, the studies actually was centered around socialism and in a sense not so much capitalism, but we have to recognize that, you know, economics will have the need to study some of the tools that is used in marketing, in finance, just the same way for capitalist society. We'll study those tools. And in terms of business planning and development, just the same way. And it's the application that we put those tools to use, which is important in developing our own society, our own community, and the people, and so forth. So, you know, some of the terms that are used in our circles could be an anti-capitalist, which might give the wrong impression that people should not study the tools which is used in capitalist business.
Yes, sir.
But that's kind of not the full picture, because of course you have to have business and finance in, as in China. China is now applying all of the tools while they're still communist.
Yeah.
So we can go into those particular areas so long as we don't behave like they're behaving.
Yes, sir. Totally agree with you. You know. All right, family. If nobody else is gonna come through, man's gonna look to wrap up still.
All right, fam. Yeah, man. So just keep the thing fire burning, and we here now. MA is there with you.
Yes, sir.
And me and your dad know each other from way back.
We know.
Yes. And guess what? His father and my father know each other too from way back too.
Yeah, that's it, go.
They went to the same school,
Okay. So,
yeah, man.
History this then. I wonder if I history this, sir.
Yeah, man. And guess what?
Yeah.
You see the Garvey thing?
Yes, sir.
I feel we think that.
All right, you don't know.
Foundation. That's where they come from,
Yes, King. Yes,
yeah,
King.
man.
Yes, King.
All right, Milan.
Yes, King. Give thanks. Yeah, give thanks. Give thanks.
Keep it straight. Keep it straight. Highly blessed.
Ali. Right, a king of gold. I got a question for Shaka, but I will type it down. I'll answer this and then we can wrap up here. What would you say to a person who wants to reconnect to African spirituality and its customs amongst all of the demonization and fear-mongering? First and foremost, educate yourself. And a good place to start is Ancestral Voices that I mentioned earlier. They've done a very comprehensive job of giving people basic understanding of African spirituality. So go to ancestralvoices.co.uk. Yeah, ancestralvoices.co.uk is the place to go to access the documentaries and the book Ancestral Voices. So learn about it. You know what I'm saying? Learn about it. And then difficult in the UK, so somewhat, but find you this should have been in the presentation. Thank you for asking this question. Find you a community of people that are dealing with African spirituality. And I should actually point out a slide that I missed out of the presentation, which is that my organization, the Al-Qaeda and Revivalist Movement, this is what I should have ended on, every month hosts Shumida. Shumida is a word in the Shona language of Zimbabwe, which means worship. Content, share my screen again, please. And you can find out information on this at alkebaland.org, yeah, alkebaland.org. And so Shumida, I was looking for the flyer. The flyer is not here no more. Okay, well, alkebaland.org is the place to go for information about Shumida, yeah? This is the flyer. I'm trying to big up the flyer. Oh yeah. Okay. Anyway, so every first Sunday of the month here, we have our African spiritualist worship, so to speak. And yeah, so you can come join us every first Sunday. You can come join us if you're an African every first Sunday of the month. And you find information about that on our website. Yeah. So once again, inform yourself and then find a community, that is dealing with the thing. Yeah. And from there you'll find other communities. There are some that deal with just strictly Ifa or Budan, or there's a developing Dogon community over here as well. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. You can start sharing our content. Do you yourself subscribe to the laws of Maat? Is that possible to do so in the West? Yes. We apply the laws of Maat wherever we can. And the thing about the laws of Maat is that they apply to our family, to our individual selves and everything. So begin with our families, you know what I'm saying, in terms of applying laws of Maat, in terms of how we relate to our wives, our husbands, our children, our parents, etc., etc. And then we have to organize institutions. So I work in a Saturday school and a homeschoolers group, and we govern, those institutions according to laws of Maat. And yeah. Caleb says, ShakaRa, good discussion, but we prefer more discussion on Pan-Africanism. Now, I'm sure you can see how what I've discussed today relates to Pan-Africanism, especially with the last few slides that I delivered in terms of the nation building efforts and cultural continuity and historical continuity and all of these things. Yeah. Bear that in mind, because the two things are not distinguished and separate from each other. We're dealing with connectivity and interrelatedness. In other words, what I'm saying is that African spirituality, KIMOYO, is one of the imperatives. It's for me a Pan-African imperative. Yeah. All right, content. I think we're gonna wrap up there, because yeah, that's it. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, nobody else know how I come through. So I guess that the information has been shared sufficiently. So come true content and share a last word, innit?
Definitely,
If you
definitely.
can.
Well, you know, the show was very, very potent. I got a lot from it, and I hope that, you know, this can continue and some economic support can come from the people to help this grow and develop. I think everything we do needs to have nurturing, you know, from the community, from the masses. If we don't nurture what we want, we will not develop and grow. And
Yes,
so, you know, I want to just rise you up for this show, brilliant show, and hope that, you know, ones will just share the links with this and not only share it, but, you know, try and support it financially. And hopefully, you know, we can have similar presentation around other areas, you know, of discipline that we require in developing a Pan-African society, you know, throughout the African continent. Now we've got Africa Free Trade, and that has a lot of promises. So long as we can develop those institutions under our control, that is going to actually take the lead in the development. I know, you know, ADDI and all the initiative that's going on right now, yeah, it's there, but it is the people that needs to develop themselves and become part of those institutions that's going to make them succeed. Yeah, if the people are just looking at things from the Abrahamic religious perspective, in that they're looking for miracles, are they looking for leaders, or are they looking for, you know, messiahs, then it means that those projects will not have the support that it needs. You know, so we got to take a different stance from what we've been taking, or we've been put in that condition to do, and make it something which we are going to develop a new strategy that will turn us from becoming hopeful to becoming creative and deliberate in changing our own reality, you know, and for the future, going on to build those things. Because, you know, I can remember certain phrases that we use in our political arena, like, you know, people don't like opportunists and all that kind of thing. But, you know, when you look at it, right, if you cannot take the opportunity that presents itself, means that you're not going to actually succeed in anything. Yeah, and the conditions that are there right now in terms of the opportunities to make real Pan-African development, it's there. You know, and, you know, one just have to find their own little area of responsibility, wherever their knowledge or their skills can allow them to function. And so therefore, if I'm an engineer or I'm a scientist, then that's what I'm going to go and contribute towards. Who knows what the future will be? Maybe I might move from an engineer to become a scientist.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But I have to start where I'm at, you know, and work that, you know, with all the quality and the ability that I have. And we all do that together. And that's what makes it, you know,
Agreed.
The revolution that we're looking for.
Yes, uncle. Give thanks. Give thanks.
Yes, uncle.
Yes.
Respect.
What's it? What am I saying? Two things. Hands of Stone, you're gonna have to watch the presentation, family, for the answer to that question, because we can't go over the whole of that again. Big up Black Van Man. I see you, bro. Give thanks for the greetings still.
Mad thing. Man like Black Van Man, you know, alien of Shaka.
Yeah, you know. But yeah, we're done, family. We're done, innit? So go out you content.
Yes, fam. Respect for coming on, like I said already. We try to run this in the background, fam. I don't know if you can hear this, fam. You can hear that?
Yeah.
You get me? Respect ShakaRa for coming on.
Blessings.
African teacher.
Appreciate it. You know.
You get me? No matter who you born. Don't like when I call you African, you get me? Yeah. But anytime you teach him, fam.
Yeah, give thanks.
I'll never be late.
We're gonna break it up as well, so we can do some short and on the different aspects of that today. Like each segment can do a presentation on that. So I'm gonna do that on my channel at some point. So yeah.
I was gonna say as well, because Kutu was like, yeah, we need to get that presentation. We'll be happy to pay for that presentation still. So when it's ready, you know.
Cool. Well, give thanks.
All right then. Respect everybody for logging in, and checking in the teachings from the African teacher ShakaRa. That's what I call him still. He don't call himself that. But I'm trying to make that stick. You get me? African teacher ShakaRa still, sir. Yeah. It's gonna be up here for however long YouTube allow it to be, sir. Feel free to watch it back, and because it was a long presentation. You get me? We're 3.5 hours in right now. I think the actual presentation went on for how long though, Shaka?
About 2
hours, you get me? And he was breezing through as well still, so you know we have more to give, but go and watch that back in segments, man. And taking the new vital information when you never knew before, cause me I learned enough about it. And it's rare, other than home team history and a few other channels on YouTube, it's rare that you hear teachings about African spirituality from a perspective that's more glorifying it as opposed to demonizing it. Because as man was saying in his presentation, more time when you hear about anything African, it's usually in a derogatory tone, you get me? And it's from people that ain't African themselves, or it's people that's African and just abandon their ways and pick up other people's things, you get me? So yeah, man, taking this and have a nice evening or nighttime or whatever you're gonna do for the rest of the day still, so I hate that still. African teacher, we're gone.
Blessings.
Yes. Malomo. Yes, I.
Tenawari.
Respect. Tenamari. All right, until the next show. Africa Liberation Day, ShakaRa.
I'm speaking online still, so.
Yes, I got so. Together, so. Yeah. All right, my brother.
Yes, King.
Yes, uncle.
One love.
Bless
Every time.
Bless.
Peace, Shaka. We are.
Yeah, okay. Bless.